Hi, I'm Emma, and I live in a small city where people are not too much because I love to live a low-key life, and I so much love keeping to myself. My parents complained several times about this type of attitude that I've cultivated, but that's just me. So as time goes on, they have to take me for who I am. So they already know the type of girl I am, so they always let me be at all time. I'm so much quiet and reserved. I'm not the type of person who likes games or do too much on the daily activities, but I like reading novels and watching a lot of movies, especially comedy movies, because since I already choose to keep to myself, I have to find a means of catching fun by myself. I attend a high school class where students have the choice to do what they like and want. Whenever I'm in class, I'm always reserved and quiet, always. But I do have friends who always love to force words out of my mouth whenever they are around me. I love going to school every day, if not for anything but for the sake of seeing my friends, because I will surely talk whenever I'm around them. On this beautiful morning when I got to class, I noticed a letter was dropped inside my locker, which was so unusual. I decided to open the letter after the class, but while the teacher was in class teaching, all my mind was on was the letter that was dropped inside my locker. Immediately when the teacher left the class, I opened it, and what I discovered was a love letter, which I did not know who dropped it there. I tried to pay so much attention to every guy I came in contact with in class so as to get who dropped the letter, but it was not too available. After a long period of staying in class during the break hour, my friends came to my seat to meet me, and then they all said we should go outside to get something. On our way out, some guys came our way, and trying to get our attention at first, I looked at all of them, thinking maybe it might be one of them that cultivated the habit of dropping the sticky note inside my locker. But with all their facial expressions, I don't think any of them can do such. They tried stopping us, not moving any step out of there, and all we just have to do is to comply. But all of a sudden, a teacher decided to come our way. Then immediately they noticed that the teacher was coming our way. They all left instantly, and we proceeded in getting what we wanted to go by. I told my friends about the sticky note I discovered inside my locker that morning, and they all laughed at me, saying maybe a guy has been stalking me all this while. They then said that one of us should try coming to school very early so that the guy can be caught. But that guy that dropped the sticky note is just too smart and expert. We tried for days, but we could not get the guy, so I told the ladies to forget the issue, that I'm very sure that one day he will surely reveal his identity. As time goes on, it became a regular routine. Every blessed morning when I get to my seat, I will surely find a sticky note with a love quote inside my locker. At some point, I got annoyed and frustrated, but there's no point yelling because I did not know who was doing such a thing. So I decided to stomach it, and I did not tell it to anyone. One day during school hour, a teacher at school was explaining to us a physics experiment, and he made it as a game because he wanted all the students to participate and be carried along. During this process, all students participating closed their eyes and tasted, perceived, and some liquids to tell what it is based on their taste. It was quite fun because all students were carried along for the first time at school, and we all laughed where someone guessed wrong because we all gave various answers, knowing fully well that our tasting boards are different. I really enjoyed the class that day because it was so much different. The following day in class was Friday, so a group of people in class came together and discussed that we should have a get-together party on Saturday, which is the following day. So they asked the whole class about their opinion concerning the party. To my surprise, everyone was happy to hear that they all turned in. Well, as for me, having a get-together party on Saturday, though the plan was a little bit awkward to me because I don't really like associating myself with things like that because I so much love keeping to myself. A venue was picked, and all plan was so fascinating and lovely. Actually, I love the plan because I want to see how it will look for the first time by the beach side, so I decided to hang out that day. When I got home that day, I told my mom about the plan of going to the beach the following day. She was so happy to hear that because she's never seen me going out before. So that night, my mom came into my room and went directly to my wardrobe to select the clothes I will be putting on the following day. When it comes to selecting clothes for an event, My mom is very good at it, and she so much loves me looking good and cute, always. So the day finally came. I woke up so late, maybe because I slept late checking out the clothes my mom was picking for me to wear. I had to rush to the bathroom to have my bath so as to dress up to meet with the event, knowing fully well that I'm late already. After having my bath, I dressed up, looking cute and pretty for the event. After dressing up, I set out for the party immediately. So finally, I got to the venue, a little bit late. And trust me, just as planned, all eyes were on me, because I was so much looking gorgeous and pretty. After getting there, a guy named Sean in my class ran towards me to give me a long hug and a peck. After he did that, I was so shy to take a step away from where I was standing. But from the look of things, he's been a long-time crush. Throughout the party, Sean was all over me, because that will be the first time he will have the opportunity of talking to me and expressing himself. We both have a walk together, and he told me a lot of things about me which I was so surprised to hear. Then I knew he has been the guy stalking me. Actually, Sean has been the guy dropping all those sticky notes with love quotes under my locker. At first, when he told me he was the one, I was so mad with him. Then I told him that he's a coward. If not, he would have come to me himself and not by note. Then he said he did not know what I was going to say because he did not want to be too forward. Then we both smiled and laughed together. Then we moved on with the party. We hung out and made a walk through a beach and had fun, and then we all decided to go to a friend's apartment. So a small group of us went into the apartment, and here comes the idea to play a blind taste game, similarly with a game we once played at school. I was so anxious to play the game, but at the same time, I didn't want to join. I simply refused, but then I thought of it that I am the one who is really good in tasting things and smell very good, so I later decided to participate in the end. So, as usual, the game started and was getting more interesting and fun, but still yet throughout this period, Sean did not leave my side for once. Well, he might be thinking he might not have this type of opportunity again. So everyone's turn during the game came and went, and here it comes my turn. So a guy closed my eyes and pushed my head towards the object. So I tried to perceive the object. I was not getting it. Then I tried touching it with my nose. At first it was a strong object as I touched it with my nose a bit and said, "It's a pen," as it does not smell at all. They all smiled. And then I was wondering what could it be. I then gave another try, but the object this time was softer. I was then surprised, thinking within me, maybe the object has been changed. But then I asked if they changed the object, and changing the object is outside of game rules. They all said no, that it's still the same object, and I thought, what could it be? But I had no answer. After a little moment of thinking, I grabbed the object with my hand to know what the shape of the object looks like. Then I feel it was a tall object, similar to cylinder, and I immediately opened my eyes. I was so much afraid because it is something inappropriate. When I opened my eyes, what I saw was simply a banana, which was so different to what I felt when my eyes were closed and everyone was laughing at me. I was annoyed, and only Sean could notice it then. He came to walk me home. He explained to me that it was a banana, but still yet, I disagree. I just told him to close the discussion. When I got back home, I greeted my mom with a weird look on my face. Then I went straight to my room. She gave me some minutes to be by myself before she came to meet me. Then she asked me what happened at the party. Then I narrated everything to her, not leaving behind the aspect where Sean came to give me a long hug and a peck. She told me not to be annoyed about the game, though I have forgotten about how I felt during the game period because the thought of Sean is now all over me. So Mom asked me to gist her about Sean. So I did, and we all laughed and I was happy all through the night. When I got back to school, I discovered that I did not see the sticky note as usual. Then I looked straight down to Sean's seat, and then I saw him smiling. Then I laughed as feel. So the class started and immediately the teacher came in. Then every other student told the teacher about everything that happened to me at the party, and they laughed. But then the teacher said to me, he will call me one day and tell me a secret behind this game. Then he left the class, but within me I am still not sure if the object was banana at first, or they changed the object during the game, as it softened and changed, and I am still confused, and I will never play that game again. This is the reason why I didn't want to participate in the game earlier. See what it all turns out to be? Please let me know in the comments if you think they've changed the object, or am I just thinking wrong?
Hi there, my name is Melissa, and I am only 17-year-old. Before I begin with my story, I want to give you a glimpse of my life. I come from the beautiful city of Jylland. I was born and raised here. Our house is upon a hill, and you can see the whole city from it. The views are crazy, and the sunsets are breathtaking. The sunrises are beautiful too, but I am not an early bird. I love to sleep a lot, especially in the mornings. I barely go in time for school. So yeah, I don't get to see a lot of sunrises. I live with my dad, mom, and my little brother. But we recently welcomed a new family member. It's my favorite member, actually, our little puppy. It was my birthday gift from Dad. I've always wanted a dog. I like to believe that our dog is happy here. When I am at home, I feel like a baby, my mom and dad kissing my forehead everywhere I go. Asking me what I want to eat, telling me to go to sleep. They still treat me like I am a child. My parents don't get it that I am a grown-up. When I go to my school, it is a whole different story. I am a teenager. I act how a 17-year-old should act. I am not the sweet daddy's little girl. I have just started my second year of high school, and my parents have no idea what goes on there. They don't know that there is not a single soul there that hasn't dated someone at least once, including their daughter. Me. Just like everyone else, I've liked someone too. But this was years ago and I was very young. I gave my first kiss, not knowing what a kiss was. Since then, I haven't dated anyone. It's not that I am not wanted, but no one has caught my eye. Well, that's what I thought until one day. One morning, I heard my alarm ringing, and I looked at the clock. I decided to give myself some extra minutes and enjoy the sleep on my warm bed. I had stayed all night the other night, well, how couldn't I? The new episodes of my favorite show had been aired. Suddenly, I felt someone touching my shoulder and calling my name gently, and it was Dad. "Aren't you going to school?" he said. Well, yeah, Dad, I am, obviously. It was Monday, and I had to go to school. Why are Mondays always so hard? I hate it. I got up and tried to get ready, but I was already late. This wasn't the first time that I missed my early classes. My parents understand me when I can't wake up early, they don't say anything to me. But this will for sure affect my grades. I wore anything that I could find. Clothes that were lying on the ground of my room from the days before. Thinking about how I have to clean my room after school today. My mom will kill me if she sees how messed up my room was, but she is most of the time at work. Crossing my fingers that she would not go into my room today. At least I opened the window, so some fresh air would go in. Because I had eaten in my room the night before, it smelled terrible. I got out, and my parents had already left for work. I had to walk to school. It was windy and cold. Just what I needed. It was already a bad day, and I wouldn't be surprised if a group of stray dogs would follow me and try to eat me. This is a very serious problem in our city, there are a lot of stray dogs. I love dogs, but sometimes they can be dangerous. I arrived at my school and noticed that the door was closed. There were a lot of people there. I tried to open the door, and someone said, "They are not letting us in because we are late." I turned my back to see who was talking. And oh my God, he was the most handsome boy I've ever seen in my life. I didn't know who he was. He might be in his last year of high school. We stayed there, waiting, and he would look at me nonstop. But this wasn't my best day. I wasn't looking the best. It was so cold, and I could feel my nose had turned red. Have I even brushed my hair? I am the most unlucky person alive. I was surprised at how he was looking at me. I was a mess. But then, he started walking towards me. He looked like he wanted to say something to me. But the bell had rung at that moment, and the door was opened. I was curious about what he was going to say to me, but the curiosity didn't last very long. When I came home, I had a new follow request. It was him. How did he find me? Why did he follow me? I wanted to know, so I requested him back. He accepted it within seconds. I am not even kidding, I spent a whole good hour stalking at his profile, and he apparently posts a lot. I learned a lot about him. He goes to the gym every morning before school. You should have seen his pictures, his body. He had posted with his family, and he had a dog. But I couldn't help but notice all the girls commenting on his pictures. Then, I stalked at those girls' profiles too. They were from different cities, and they were so hot and beautiful, it made me jealous. I was jealous because I looked nothing like them. So, I deleted all of my posts. I was embarrassed. In that minute, the boy texted me. I felt sick from all of the butterflies flying in my stomach. I decided to go into my room and text in peace. I decided to not open his messages right away. I didn't want to look like I was interested. But I couldn't resist any longer. He had said, "Why did you delete your posts?" I was going to look at them. In my mind, I was saying, "It's fine, you can look at the photos of the hundreds of other girls that you follow." But I played cool, and that night we stayed until the morning texting non-stop. He was exactly my type, funny, sweet, and sarcastic. But he had made my life complicated. Now I couldn't wake up late for school and go looking like a complete mess. I needed to look good. I started not staying up late at night. This way, I became an early bird. My mom and dad were curious about how I changed. But I need to, because I see him every day at school. We saw each other, but we hadn't had the chance to talk to each other yet. I was stupid to think that a guy like him would be interested in me. Every girl drools after him. But, one day, as we were texting, he said that he wanted to go out on a date with me. I couldn't believe my eyes. But I didn't care, I said yes immediately. We have been texting for months now. It was time for us to meet. But, what was I going to wear? Will he like me? 100 questions were running through my mind. He was a year older than me, so he had a driver's license. He said that he would come by my house and pick me up. I was so stressed knowing that my mom and dad would see me. I spent hours trying to find the perfect outfit. My room once again had become a big mess. That moment Mom came in to call me to eat dinner and saw the mess. She said I couldn't go out unless I cleaned all of that. I was sweating, and I didn't have much time left. I didn't even fold my clothes, I just left them on my bed. I ran out of my house because he was already waiting outside. He was waiting for some streets away from my home, and the walk to his car was so awkward. I could see him looking at me while I was walking. I got in his car, and his perfume was everywhere, and it smelled so good. I have a weird obsession with men's perfume, and I always use my dad's. Anyways, he hugged me, and we decided to just have a ride around the city and listen to some music. I couldn't stop looking at his hands while he was driving. He was wearing a ring on his index finger. I could tell what we were vibing, and we were enjoying each other's company. He was laughing at everything I was saying. We bought some food, and we ate it in the car. We didn't realize that it had been hours since I had been out until my dad called me asking where I was. This was the end of our date. The only way to find out if the person you went on a date with likes you is if he texts you immediately that night. And that's what he did. He texted me, and the texting continued for days. I know that we weren't dating yet, but we were texting, telling him personal things I never discussed with anyone else. And there was something that I didn't like. He would always follow girls on his Instagram and like their posts, and there were times he would even comment. I didn't know how to feel. I wasn't doing what he was doing. I wasn't accepting it, but he called me on another date. But he called me on a very, very bad day. My period had just come, and my stomach was hurting so bad. My face was full of pimples. There was a big, disgusting pimple right around my lips. I didn't want him to see me that way, so I said I couldn't go out. I didn't tell him why not, obviously. But I tried to hide in school too, just so he didn't see me. I couldn't go out with him until this pimple would be gone. Seeing what kind of girls he follows, my confidence was so low. My period pimples only last some weeks, so that's alright. Just when I thought that nothing could go any wrong, I accidentally fell asleep while chewing gum one night. I didn't notice it until I woke up for school and tried to brush my hair. I tried to brush my hair, but I couldn't. Then, I saw it. The gum was on my hair. I screamed so bad, Mom came to check if I was alright. I wasn't alright. Mom said I should chop my hair. I couldn't go to school that day, and I had to go to a hairstyle and take care of it. The hairdresser laughed when she saw me, but she said some bad news. She said that the only solution for my hair was to get bangs. Bangs? But that was so 2000s, and nobody has bangs anymore. I was going crazy, but I had no other choice. I cut it, and I was looking so ugly. I cried till we arrived home, and I didn't have time to check on my phone, and I was in a crisis. But, a number called me. It was the boy that I was texting with. He said that he wanted to see me tonight since I missed school. He said that he missed me. But I couldn't go out like this. I was looking crazy. My plan was to not see him for some months, so my hair would grow a little. Weeks went by, and he called me once again. I wanted to see him because I missed him so much. But, Dad said that we will give him some money and buy some clothes when he gets paid. I needed new clothes, so I thought it would be better if I waited for more weeks. I wanted to look good. But, I noticed that he wasn't texting me as he usually did. He was cold. However, I decided to put my guard down for once in my lifetime and be the one to ask him on a date. Guess what? You will never guess this, so I will tell you myself. He said that he couldn't go out because he had got a new girlfriend. Maybe that's what I get for caring too much about how I looked.
Hi guys, my name is Bora, and I have just turned 16-year-old. I wanted to tell my story about what had happened to me some months ago. But, first, you need to know more about me. I was born and raised in Pristina. My name, Bora, means snow, in my language, because I was born during the coldest winter days. I live with my parents and my 2 little sisters. Everyone says that it is fun to have sisters, but mine are crazy. My parents are the sweetest parents in the whole world, and they did the most so we could have a great life. My parents work all the time, and we are at school. My mom is a nurse, and she often works at night too. My dad is a fireman. They both save a life for a living. We barely get to see each other, but that's why vacation exists. The only vacation that we can have together as a family is during the summer. Every summer has its own story, mine too. This summer, we decided to take a 1-week vacation to the beautiful beaches of Albania. Albania is a very amazing country, and we go there every summer. There is so much to see and do. You have a lot of beaches that you can choose to visit. This time we decided that we were going to Ksamil. We had never been there before, and we were excited. We decided that we would go by car, even though it would be a long road from Pristina to there. But we didn't care, as long as we knew we were going to take some cold swims on Albania's most clear waters. Another reason why we decided to go there was because of a friend that I have. It had been a year since I had been texting with my internet friend. Her name is Anna. Anna is from Albania, and we had actually met last summer. We clicked immediately, and we have been texting since that day. We would FaceTime non-stop. My whole family knows about her, and everybody knows how much we love each other. She is the same age as me. When I told her that I would be coming to her country this summer too, she was so excited and said I should meet her. So my plan was to stay 4 days with my family, and then the last day I would go to Anna. My parents agreed. We all got ready for the long road journey ahead of us. I was sitting in the back seat of our car with my 2 little sisters. As always, they were so annoying, so I put on my headphones and listened to my favorite albums the whole road. There were times when I would fall asleep. I love falling asleep while on a road trip. It is so relaxing. After some long hours, we arrived at our destination. The sun was so bright, and it was a very hot day. My father was so tired from driving all day, but we girls were ready to spend some hours by the pool. I put on my favorite bikini. The weather was perfect, and there were many people there. We had so much fun on those first days of our vacation. We all needed that. But then it was time for me to go with my friend. My friend was in a different city in Albania, only some hours away. We planned that she would come and get me, but she couldn't come. I didn't want to bother my dad and mom and take hours from their vacation, so I decided to take the bus. Plus, we all talked the same language, so it wouldn't be hard for me to communicate. I got ready. I got my sunglasses, and I wore a sundress. I got only 1 bag with me, and some food for the road. I was so excited because Anna said she would show me some secret beaches that Albania has, and no one knows. Some hidden gems. I went to the bus station on foot, and I already got so tired because it was so hot outside. I arrived there and saw a lot of buses. At first, I didn't know which one to get in. But then I heard some man yelling the city's name that I would be going and pointing to a bus. So I went there. I got on the bus and told Anna immediately, so then she could wait for me when I got off the bus. There was even hotter there. It was an old bus, and it smelled terrible. There was only one old couple there, and they were eating something. Something that smelled so bad, I almost puked. Anna told me that it would take me 2 hours to arrive at her city. I knew that it would be a very long, challenging road trip. The road was bumpy, and I would put my face outside the window to feel some fresh air. But the views were crazy. The mountains were huge, and the sky was so blue. I could see the ocean from the bus, and I couldn't wait to get in the water. After a 40-minute drive, the bus stopped, and the old couple got off the bus. Then after 20 minutes, the man that was driving the bus told me that I had arrived at my destination. But Anna had said that it would take me 2 hours, and it had only been 1 hour. I tried to tell the man that I thought I was in the wrong place, but he said no. He was so rude and said that he needed to go somewhere else and that I needed to get out of the bus. I didn't have much time to think, and I went out of the bus. There was no one around me, just some mountains. I took my phone, and I tried to call Anna and tell her that I was there. But my phone wasn't working. I didn't have a connection. I didn't want to panic. I decided to wait there for some time and see if another bus would come. I waited till I couldn't wait any longer. It was so hot, and I couldn't even find a shadow. Then, I started walking, hoping to find a restaurant to even call someone. As I was walking, I came across a little village. It looked like a tiny neighborhood. It had only like 3 houses. But it looked so beautiful. I decided to go there and see if someone would help me. The houses were made of mud, and they were so old. They must have been built years ago. It was so silent, and at first, I thought that nobody lived there. But then I saw that there was a little farm. There were chickens, pigs, and then suddenly, I saw a big white horse. Near the animals, there was a well. There was a bucket in which you could take the water. I took some because I got so thirsty. It made me feel like old times. The water was cold, and it got me feeling much better. Still, I couldn't hear any track of humans. I was walking around the houses, trying to see if there was someone there from the windows. I decided to knock on one of the house's doors, but no one replied. Then, I went to another one near there. I heard someone walking slowly. Then, the door got opened. There was a very, very old woman. She seemed kind because she opened the door and her face was smiling. I asked her where I was. She said that I was in a whole different place rather than where I wanted. She said that I must have taken the wrong bus. I could barely understand what she was saying because she had no teeth. I felt so bad. I asked her about the nearest bus station, and she said that the buses don't come to this area because the roads are bad and bumpy. She said that they won't walk by the horse. I was surprised that people still use horses as vehicles. She said that her husband rides the horse. But he wasn't home. She insisted on me going to her house and waiting for her husband so that he could give me a ride. I had no other choice. They obviously didn't have phones, and there wasn't any connection. I couldn't call my family and tell them what had happened. So, I went in. The house was so tiny but so cute at the same time. The furniture was so old, and the television was barely working. We decided to stay outside on the balcony. The air was so fresh, and the view was beautiful. She made me some fresh orange juice from her garden and gave me some fresh fruits. She told me that everyone had left this village and that she and her husband were the only ones living there. I asked her about her kids, but she said that everyone had left and gone to the city. I felt bad. They must have been feeling so lonely. But, no. She was happy and full of life. The clock was ticking, and her husband wasn't coming back. She said he works all day and takes care of the corn. She said that he would be late and needed to stay and wait. So that's what I did. I was so hungry. Luckily, the old woman started making the dinner. I decided to help her. She wanted to make a traditional Albanian pie. So, I went to her garden and picked up some fresh onions. She was so old, but she was so strong. As the pie was baking, we had the chance to get to know each other better. It was getting darker, and we ate dinner. Her husband still wasn't home. There weren't any lights in the room, only some candles. I was looking through the windows, but I couldn't see anything. It was so dark. Suddenly, we heard the noise of a horse near the house. It was her husband, and he had come back. He was happy to have someone over. He was very kind. He seemed very tired, but he didn't miss the chance to kiss his wife. They looked like they were so in love with each other. But there was some bad news. He said that he couldn't ride the horse at night because it was dangerous. He said that we had to wait till the sun rises. But that would have meant that it would be a whole day without my family contact me. I had no other choice but spent the night there. I felt safe there because the old couple seemed like the nicest people. They made me a place to sleep in their living room. They slept so early. So I was all night up and scared. It was so dark. There was only one candle. I missed my family, and my phone battery had died. The old couple had woken up very early. They called me and said they were ready to give me a ride. I had slept on my sundress, and I hadn't brushed my teeth or hair. I didn't care, and I went out that way. I felt so sorry that I had to leave that old woman alone. She needed someone. She hugged me so tight and kissed my forehead. She said that she would like to see me again, anytime soon. I got in the horse, and that was the first time that I did that. At first I was scared, but then I loved it. It was a fun experience. He took me to my friend's place, and everyone was staring at us. I thanked him, and I hugged him. I met up with my friend, and I charged my phone without wasting time. I told my family that I was okay. They were so worried. Now, I was ready to continue with my vacations with Anna. I just wanted to tell my story because this experience had taught me a lot. It took me back to a time when life was simpler. It made me think about life differently and how simple it is, but we make it so complicated. I admired how grateful that old woman was about life. Even though they had no phones, no cars, they were happy. They were healthy, and that's what mattered. Hi guys, my name is Riri, and I have just turned 16-year-old. I just wanted to share some pieces of my life with you, how I found love at a very young age. I want to have my story written, so my future kids will know every detail of it. I was born and raised in Pristina, together with my big family. I live with my mom and dad, 2 sisters, and my little brother. My little brother's birthday was some months ago, and we decided to buy him a Labrador puppy, and we decided to name it Rico. I didn't know how much of a responsibility it was to raise a dog until now. But we love it. We are enjoying it every minute. This year hasn't been the greatest for us, because our grandparents have passed away from the COVID. Our home feels empty without them. But, no matter what, we should move on with our lives. And that's what we did. Days in my life are very chaotic. My parents are always working, so they aren't home all the time. My mother is a nurse, and sometimes she works during the night. My father is a waiter at a restaurant near our house. I am the second child. My bigger sister is married and has kids, but she often visits us. That means that my little sister and brother are kind of my responsibility. I love them, but sometimes they get on my nerves. They are crazy and annoying. I like having my life in control. I want my 8 hours of sleep and my healthy breakfast. I want to read my favorite book and watch my favorite series. I enjoy talking my usual evening walks with our dog. But recently I haven't had the chance to do the things that I love. It's impossible. When my grandma and grandpa were alive, it was easier for me. Because they were home all the time, and they would take care of us. I became in charge too soon. Even though I hate school and I hate waking up early, it is still my escape. My escape from everything, from my home. It's where I can be a typical 16-year-old for some hours. Because, at home, I usually cook or take care of my siblings. High school is easy for me. It is not what I accepted. I used to see all of those movies saying that it is a nightmare. But, no. It is the opposite. I have made some very great friends that I know are gonna last forever. I am a very outgoing person, so it has never been a problem for me to make friends. I have been in a very short relationship, only once. He was my first kiss, but I regret it all my life. It was so meaningless. From that moment, I promised myself that I would never get in a relationship unless I knew that it would last. Wanna know another good escape besides school? Months ago, just some blocks away from my house, a coffee shop had opened. It is the cutest coffee shop that I have ever seen. It gives me good vibes. At first, I only went there to wait while my siblings would come back from school. But, now, it had become my sweet little escape. I go there every day after school, on the same spot. I like to sit by the window and enjoy the view, especially when it is raining. I stay there for hours. Sometimes I lose track of time. But, it has become my second home. I would go there with friends, but most of the time, I am alone. I used to hate going places alone. It felt so weird. Once I read a quote saying that if you are brave enough to eat alone at a restaurant, you can do anything in life. And, that's the truth. Now I am used to it, and I love my own company. It is peaceful. But, here in Pristina, people are not used to seeing people who are alone at a coffee shop. I often catch people looking at me strangely. One day, I was staying there, minding my own business. I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, I noticed a note on the desk where I was staying. At first, I thought that that was the bill, but no. I opened it, and someone had written saying, "Hi." Hi. What does that mean? Was that for me? I looked around the bar, and nobody was there, just the workers that worked in the shop. I asked for the bill and asked the waiter if he had seen anything. He said no, but he said that we could look at the cameras. I didn't want that. It wasn't a big deal, just a little bit curious. I went home, but I tried not to think about this. The next day had come, and I had just finished school for the day. I didn't know if I wanted to go to my favorite coffee shop because I didn't know who could it be. But it could be someone just joking around, so why wouldn't I go? I went there, and that day, there were many people, and I barely found a seat. I ordered the usual, an iced frappe coffee. I read some chapters of the book that I was reading and went home. This time nobody had left me a note, and nobody had talked to me. So, for a while I had forgotten all about that note. Some days had gone by, and no note. Until one day, someone had put a sticker on my laptop, saying, "Tell me your name, and put this note under the table so I can know." I didn't know if I should like this or be afraid of this. I started to not feel safe there anymore. It felt like I was being watched all the time. I went out of the shop, and I was looking left and right all the time, seeing if someone was following me. But no one was following me, luckily. I decided to not go there anymore, so maybe that person would have given up. I didn't go there for weeks. Then, I went there with one of my friends, but she couldn't stay very long. I decided to stay there and just see if someone would come. I didn't even go to the bathroom. I stayed there, and nothing happened. I asked for the bill, and guess what? On the bill, there was a note saying, "I was worried about you, where were you?" I was shocked and asked for the waiter who had written this. The waiter said that he couldn't tell me. But he said that a guy that always came here wanted to write to me. He said that he got paid to not tell names. I decided to finish this and write him back. I put a note under the desk where I was staying, saying, "Who are you?" I was curious more than ever. The next day I went to the coffee shop, and the only free spot left was where I usually sit. What a coincidence. I sat there, and the first thing that I did was put my hands under the table and see if I had a note. There was a note saying, "I can't tell you my name yet, but I want to know more about you." I replied, "What do you want to know about me, and why?" I put the note under the desk and continued with my day. Now I had another reason to go to the coffee shop. I don't know why, but I found this so interesting and exciting. My life felt like I was in a movie. The next day, that person had left another note saying that the reason why they wanted to get to know me was that I had looked mysterious. I had no idea who could it be. A girl? Alright, I can never have too many friends. A boy? An old man? I was dying from curiosity because that person had seen me before, but I had no idea how they looked. I decided to write and ask about whether it was a boy or a girl. He was a boy, but 2 years older than me. He said that his name was Ron. Days were going by, and we were passing notes every day. He seemed like a lovely person. I learned a lot about him. He was a lot like me. He said that that coffee shop was his favorite place too. It wasn't just little notes anymore. We would write 2 front and back pages about our life. But I couldn't tell why he didn't want to meet. I couldn't be the first one to say that, so I waited. I was living for what will tomorrow bring. But, one day, as I was in class, my teacher called me out because my mother had come to take me. I didn't know anything about this. I went out, and I saw my whole family outside. I knew that something bad had happened because my mother had a strange look on her face. My aunt had died, and we all needed to go there. We were so sad because she had a very beautiful soul. My aunt lived so far from my city. She lived in a village. My mother said that we had to go and stay there for 3 days. And that's what we did. But that meant that I would not hear from Roni. I didn't have time to go to the coffee shop and explain to him where I would be the next few days. We had to be there immediately. We arrived at my aunt's, and I couldn't stop thinking about him, which made me realize that I liked someone that I had never seen before. I couldn't stop thinking how worried he was. Those 3 days had gone very slowly, and I was finally back at my old life. The first thing that I did was go to the coffee shop. Roni had left me a lot of letters. He thought that I decided to not do this anymore, and he had written a lot saying how much he missed me. I wrote him back and told him exactly what happened to me and that I was hoping to hear from him again. The next day I saw that he had written to me immediately. Months went by, and we were having so much fun communicating this way. It was so romantic. I decided to tell my friends about what was happening to me. But I didn't get the reaction that I was hoping for. They said how dumb I am and that I shouldn't have believed a word that that guy had spoken. They said that it could be someone that was playing and messing with me. They found it weird how he didn't ask me to meet up with him. It was weird, but I didn't want to admit it. The words of my friends had gotten into my mind, and I decided to write and ask him to meet. I didn't want to sound desperate, but I was curious. I went into the coffee shop, and I was scared to see what he had said. Maybe he didn't want to meet with me at all. I got in and sat in my usual place, and there was a note there. I opened it, and guess what? A note said, "Look upon your left." I looked up, and a blonde guy was smiling and waving at me awkwardly. Then, he started walking towards my table. I was so nervous because that happened all of a sudden. I wasn't ready, and my body was shaking. I didn't even have my best outfit on. He came near me, hugged me tightly, and ordered my usual. He was smiling all the time. At first, we felt kind of shy, but then everything changed. We got the chance to talk about everything, and he said that the only reason why he didn't ask to meet was that he likes taking things slow. He lived not so far from my home, but I had never seen him before. We stayed and talked there for hours, and the only thing that stopped us was the waiter telling us that the coffee shop had to get closed. He walked me home that night and gave me his number. It was our time to leave the notes behind. Now it had been a year since we are together. I love how we met, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for us. Even though we are young, we have already talked about our future. The coffee shop where we met was named Embel, which means sweet in Albanian. We talked and decided that if he had a daughter in the future, we would name her that way.
Hi there, my name is Ari, and I have just turned 16 years old. Something strange had happened to me. Before I start telling my story and what had happened to me some months ago, I have to introduce myself first. My life was normal, just like others teenagers. I was born and raised in the beautiful city of Skopje. I am in love with my city. It is very inspirational to me. There is so much to see and do. There are a lot of cute little coffee shops where you can enjoy a cup of coffee on a rainy day. The people here are so kind, and it is very easy to make friends here. My family owns a penthouse in the city center, and the views are just breathtaking. I live together with my mom and dad. Unfortunately, I am an only child. My mother doesn't work because she couldn't leave me alone when I was little. But now we stay together most of the time. She is like a friend and a sister to me. On the other hand, my dad works a lot. He is a policeman, and sometimes he works overnight. My dad is a great man, but he takes everything close to his heart. He gets stressed about work and everything. At first, it didn't bother us. But it has been 2 years since his emotions are out of control. He has changed a lot as a person. Sometimes I feel like I don't know him anymore. He has become more aggressive, like he can't stand to be in the same room with mom and me. He had started drinking, and he would come home drunk almost every day. I could smell the alcohol. He was almost getting fired for coming to work drunk. He is a great father, but he is not a great husband. One day, I remember like it was today, my dad had come back from work and was so drunk. My mom was worried and tried to talk to him. His eyes were red and he was acting like crazy. The situation went out of control and he hit on my mom in front of me. He said that he was sorry and didn't mean it. But what about other times, Dad? What about the million other times that you hit Mom? My mom tried her best to understand him, thinking that it was only the stress of working and stuff like this. But he wouldn't stop being abusive. It was affecting me too. I grew up in a very toxic household. My mom would have had enough, and there were times when she would ask him for a divorce. Then, he would act good for a good month and go back to his old ways. We couldn't even call the police since my dad worked there. I felt useless, like I couldn't help my own mom. Then, something extraordinary happened to me. One day my mom and dad were arguing so hard and they were discussing who would take me if they broke up. I was angry at them because they used to love each other so much and everything had changed so fast. I didn't know what to do to make them stop, so I just yelled loudly, "Stop." I had my eyes closed, then all of a sudden, I heard absolute silence. I opened my eyes and everything had frozen. My mom and dad were not moving. I could move and talk, but they were not responding. I didn't know what was going on and I was in complete shock. Had I stopped the time? Our window balcony was open and I ran to see outside, but everything had stopped. The cars were not moving. It looked like it was the end of the world. I was so scared. I fainted. I don't remember anything else happening, but I remember waking up on my couch by my parents calling my name. I woke up and everything was normal. I thought that it was a nightmare and I was glad. But, at least my parents had stopped fighting for now. The next day I went to school without telling anyone what had happened to me. I have 2 friends that I spend my time with when I am at school. We have been friends for years now. We tell each other everything. But, I didn't want to tell them about what was happening to me. I wouldn't believe it either if someone told me this. I didn't sleep the night before and I was so sleepy I couldn't even lift my head. The class was getting boring. I didn't notice, but I had fallen asleep during class. I woke up and it was so silent. For a minute, I thought that I was in my bedroom. I looked around and no one was moving. It was happening again. That strange feeling. I had stopped time once again. This time it was easier and I didn't feel as stressed. I actually enjoyed it. But I didn't know what I had to say to start the time running as usual. I started saying a bunch of different words and nothing was changing. Then I yelled, "Start." And I was back on normality. I didn't know why I got this ability out of nowhere, but I was enjoying it. I decided not to tell anyone because I was sure that they would think that I was crazy or something. I decided to put this gift to good use. I love sleeping and I have always struggled to wake up for school. So during those times, I would always stop time and take my time to sleep for more minutes and get ready. Life was easier back home too. Whenever my parents would argue, I would just stop time and stay there in silence. Everything felt good and normal. One day, I was at school on our lunch break and my friends were arguing over pointless stuff. I heard enough drama at home, so I just yelled, "Stop." And just like that, the time stopped. I went by our school window and decided to eat my lunch in peace. As I was just looking around, I noticed something strange. Someone was moving. A boy. I didn't know who he was. He was looking around and he seemed very shocked. I was confused. Who he is and why he was able to move. I had stopped time. He was coming closer and closer to me. I tried not to move so he wouldn't notice me. I was afraid, so I yelled, "Start." Time started immediately and he got surprised. I decided to play it off like nothing had happened. Days went by and I still had this ability. I was often seeing that boy, but I didn't say anything to him. One day, we started a new class. A new teacher came and we would learn French. I came into the class and I saw that the boy was there too. We had the class together. He was so near to me. The class started and then after some minutes, I heard him saying, "Stop." He had stopped the time, but I still could move. He just kept looking around. I tried not to move so he wouldn't notice that we had the same ability. He had stopped time for some minutes and it was so hard for me to stay still. He got up and we just kept going around the class, walking. Then he stopped at my desk. I was very nervous. He came near me and said to my ear, "I know that you can see me right now." I looked at him and we just started laughing. The first thing that I said to him was, "Why can I stop time?" He said that he is dealing with the same thing and he doesn't know what to do with it. We talked for hours. His name was Roni and he said that he had been dealing with this for weeks. We were caught up in the moment and we almost forgot to start the time. We started time and continued with our day like nothing had happened. Days went by and Roni and I still could stop time. We spent a lot of time together. I felt like I liked him because I missed him when we wouldn't get the chance to see each other. We loved stopping time and spending time just the two of us. We felt like we were the only ones in the whole world. And that's how our story began. One day, we were bored staying in class. It was a beautiful, sunny day outside. So we decided to stop time and go out. We stayed in our school's garden. Both of us were lying on the grass, enjoying the day. Then, our hands touched and we looked at each other confused. We shared our first kiss there. But, things still weren't okay at home. My mom and dad were still fighting. One day, I came home from school and they were already fighting. My father had just come back from work. He was still in his uniform. My mom found out that he was cheating on her with another woman. He was so mad that she found it out. He had been drinking and he could barely stand on his feet. They were yelling at each other. At this point, they didn't even care about me or how I would feel anymore. One thing led to another, and this way, my dad took his work gun and pointed it at my mom. This was the perfect time to use my ability to stop time. I yelled like never before, "Stop." And once again, the university got my back and time froze. My body was shaking and I was so scared. I took my dad's gun and put it away from our balcony. Then, I said start and we were back. My parents were confused about what had happened. But nobody needed an explanation at that time. My dad started crying and saying that he didn't mean to point the gun at her. But, on that moment of anger, if I couldn't stop time, my mom would have been dead by now. I felt like I saved my mom for once in my life. After this time, my mom had filed for divorce. I chose to go with mom, and now there are just the two of us. Immediately after that, I had lost the ability to stop time. I decided to meet up with Roni and tell him the bad news. But he got something to tell me too. He said that he couldn't stop time either. He said that something strange and scary had happened. He said that his little sister tried to kill herself. His little sister was home alone and then Roni got home. He noticed that the living room's floor was full of water. The water was coming from the bathroom. He ran there and saw what was happening, but the door was locked. He sensed that something terrible was going to happen, so he stopped time. He found a key and opened the door. His sister was there. But luckily, he was there and could stop the time and save her. Brony and I just sat there and we were thinking how our lives would have turned if all of a sudden we wouldn't get the ability to stop time. We were feeling grateful. All those weeks, we were asking why we could do that. But now we know why. We were destined to save a life. Nobody knew about this until now, not even my mother. I decided to share my story, even though some might not believe me. But, at least I can tell you that one way or another, the universe will always have your back. Everything happens for a reason.
I am Riga, only 18 years old. I want to take you back in time and tell you what had happened to me when I was only 16 years old. But first, let me tell you about my life. I was born and lived all my life in a very tiny place in Kosovo, even though sometimes it gets lonely because almost everyone has left our village, going to the big cities. We are still grateful for the fresh air and beautiful views. I live with my mom, dad, and my two bigger brothers. I am the only daughter, and they have always treated me like a princess. However, my parents can be very strict, especially my dad. My dad can be a very old fashioned man. I try to advise him for good and tell him how much life has changed throughout the years. But it's like he's stuck in old times. It's like he doesn't want to listen and learn. But that doesn't stop me from living my life and doing whatever I want. Home is very far from school. It takes an hour. I have to get up extra early just so I can be ready in time. But the walk to the city is very long, and my hair gets curly and destroyed from the morning air. Even my makeup gets ruined. It's so annoying. But I enjoy school. I have some very good friends here that I know will last a lifetime. All of my friends are from the city, and at first it was hard for me to adapt. I felt like I didn't belong there, but they made me feel so welcomed. When I'm at school, I realize how my family and I live and how others live in the city. We all live in the same country, but still, it's a huge difference. People in the city are more open minded. I see my friends do a new tattoo every week. They have piercings all over their body and face. They change their boyfriends and girlfriends like they are changing their clothes. At first, even I found it strange, but now I'm used to it. This year, I got my first boyfriend, and with that happened the first kiss. But this only lasted for some months. Thank God my brothers didn't find out about this, because if they did, they would tell my dad, and he would think that I should be marrying the boy or something. But I don't want a relationship. I'm young. My brothers are married, and they often complain about it. They say that the ideal age to marry these days is 30 years old. All of my friends think this way too because nobody wants to get married early. This was my plan until one day. One day, I came back home from school. I was only 16 years old. I noticed there were a lot of shoes outside our door. We had some guests over. My plan was to go upstairs to my room because I was so tired from school. I always take a nap after school. I got in slowly so nobody would hear as I walked. But it was so quiet inside. My mom noticed me and she called me into the living room. She said that we had some guests that were here to see me. To see me? Who could it be? I went into the living room and I saw an old couple. There was a man too, maybe some years older than me. He was looking at me deep in the eye and he knew my name, but I didn't know who they were. They stayed less than an hour and they went. My dad asked me if I liked that man. I didn't know what he meant by that. He said that they came here to arrange a marriage with me. I couldn't believe my ears. I was only 16 years old. I was in the best times of my life. It's when I can enjoy life and do crazy things. How could I be married? But Dad said that that family liked me so much. He said they are a very good and very wealthy family. They could be paying for my college, and this way I could find a great job in the future. I kept saying no, but I didn't know that the marriage was already settled, and there was nothing that I could do but cry. I couldn't believe that Dad would do this to me. Even my brothers were mad at Dad, but Dad had a reason. He didn't tell us before, but it had been months since my dad had lost his job. He said that the only solution for us not to start the family was marrying that man. I said to Dad that I could work and keep the family. I would do any job. I wouldn't care. He said, okay, but if I don't find a job within 2 weeks, I would have to get married to that man. I accepted, thinking it would be easy to find a job, but I didn't know how hard it was. I knew that I wouldn't find anything to work in my village, and I searched in the city, even though it would be very far. I searched and searched, but nothing. I was losing hope, and it had already been a week. At this point, I was begging people to hire me, but they either said that I was too young or couldn't hire someone to work part time. I was at school, and I couldn't work full time. I had no other choice but to tell my dad that I couldn't find a job. He seemed so happy. He was being so selfish. I asked him to give me more time, but he said no. Dad said that the man was waiting for me to get married, and that tomorrow I had to go by his house. He apparently lived in a way smaller village than we did. It was far from home. That night I could barely sleep, knowing that I would leave my home forever. I had to miss school, and I didn't tell my friends what was happening to me. It was so embarrassing. I thought about quitting school, just so they couldn't know what had happened. The next day came so fast, and Mom woke me up early to get ready. Mom didn't want me to get married. I could tell in her eyes. As she was getting me ready, her eyes were full of tears, and her voice was shaking. She said that it would be better if I don't wear as usual. I shouldn't be wearing tight, ripped jeans or crop tops. Mom found an old dress of her and made me wear it. We had to walk there. It was me, Dad, and Mom. It was a very hot day. Then we arrived. They lived in a huge house. It was surrounded by big trees and had a very big, beautiful garden. In front door, there was a fountain. The sound of the water was so calming. We got in and I was so shy. The man was there and not talking at all, but he couldn't keep his eyes off of me. His parents seemed like very respectful people. They didn't have any other child. We didn't stay there much, but they decided on a date for a wedding. Maybe this family wasn't so bad after all. A month went by, and I didn't get the chance to meet up with that man. I didn't know what he was like. Was he funny? Was he respectful? The wedding day had come, and I was about to find out all of my questions. The family had given us a lot of money, so I could be ready. Dad was happy. We needed the money. The wedding was held in their garden. It was a big wedding. There were a lot of people. I didn't know anyone there. But this was the first time that I got the chance to talk to my soon to be husband. I couldn't find out much about him. The wedding was over. I had to say, the wedding was over, and I had to say goodbye to Mom and Dad, and my brothers. It was the saddest moment of my life. Then they showed us our room, where my husband and I would be sleeping. It seems so weird when I say husband. It was a big room, and it was all covered in roses. I could tell that we were both nervous and shy of knowing what would happen next. We should consume our marriage. I was scared because it was my first time. I had never done this before. He was shy too. He started getting me off my wedding dress. His hands were shaking. I was shaking too. He started to kiss me. What a weird feeling to kiss a stranger. What a weird feeling to get undressed in front of a stranger. But he was now my husband, and I had to get used to this. We were both in bed, and it was time for me to give him my virginity. Everything happened so fast. I had my eyes closed the whole time. Then he said, "Get up." He put the lights on, and he was searching for something in the sheets. I asked him about what he was searching for. He said, "I can't find the blood of your virginity, so apparently I hadn't bled at all, which was normal. I told him that every girl's body is different, and some of them bleed, some of them don't. He said, then how can I show to my parents the evidence that you were a virgin? He said that they have a tradition to show the virginity blood to their parents. I was shocked and I didn't know what to say. I could tell that he was not trusting me, that I had never been with a boy before. I was only 16 years old. He got out of bed, saying he couldn't continue this marriage because I wasn't a virgin. I didn't bleed, and that morning he will tell everyone and call off the marriage. I felt so lost. I fell asleep crying and questioning the future of my life. What will my family think of me? What will happen to me? The following day came, and his family had already picked my stuff and told me to go. They were rude to me, and they were treating me like I wasn't worth it at all. My walk home was long, and I was trying to figure out how to tell my parents. They must know that virginity is just a myth, and some girls are born without it. I was so young, and I knew so much. Why didn't they know about this? In our villages, the girls who get divorced get judged and get called terrible names. I didn't care for myself. I was thinking about my family. I arrived home, and mom and dad was there. They were curious about why was I home. I had no other choice but to tell them the truth. Dad, without any hesitation, hit me and I fell to the ground. He wanted to beat me even more, but mom stopped him. He could have beaten me to death if mom didn't stop him. He told me that I was a disappointment for the family and that no one would ever accept to marry me again. That night I slept outside of our house. Thank God it was summer. Until my brothers came and talked to my dad. Dad agreed to take me to the house, but he never talked to me. He acts like I'm not there. I'm used to that. But at least I am free, and I'm not married to someone who doesn't know how the female body works. I wanted to share my story, even though it happened a long time ago. I wanted to share it because I've heard a lot of women in the same situation as me. I want the world to know that virginity doesn't define us because it doesn't even exist for some. It's sad to see how uneducated we are, yet we are the first ones to judge.
Guys, my name is Dawn, and yesterday I turned 16-year-old. You know what they say about sweet 16, it should be sweet but crazy at the same time. But my birthday was crazier than sweet. It was an epic night, and I am going to tell you all about it. I was born and raised in Pristina, Kosovo. I am the only guy in our house. I live with my mother and my sisters. My dad had passed away from cancer when I was just a baby. I didn't get to stay much with him. But my mom says that he was exactly like me, rebellious, free and funny. I often wonder how my life would be if my dad would still be alive. But, my mom had become my dad too. She is the strongest woman that I've ever met. My mom is my hero. My two big sisters are married and have kids. Now it's just mom and me. Sometimes, she is home alone, and I feel bad, but I always say to her that she should move on with her life and find someone else. I know she loves dad, and they had a beautiful marriage and life together. But, I know that dad would want mom to be happy and not lonely. Everyone deserves to have someone they cuddle with during the cold nights. My mom often jokes around and says to me when I will bring the bride home. She was so young when she got married to dad. It was different back then. She doesn't get the fact that people don't want serious relationships nowadays. They would rather cheat than get married. She doesn't know that I text and go out with many different girls. I know that she wouldn't like this fact. She wouldn't like the fact that I smoke too. But I chose not to tell her, even though there were times that she found cigarettes on my clothes while she was doing laundry. But she never asks because she knows that the truth is ugly. I try to be a good boy just so she will not get worried. But I am a good boy. I don't mind going to school, and I don't mind waking up early in the morning. I don't even study, but I do well in school. Most of the time of my life I spend with my 3 best friends. We all go to the same school and live in the same neighborhood. We have been friends forever. My favorite part of my house is my basement. It's where my friends and I stay. We call it Don's basement. A day doesn't go without us hanging there. We play video games, we talk about girls. We drink some beers here and there. It is always a good time. But, my birthday was almost here, and this time we wanted to make something different. We didn't know what to do. We were a bunch of 15-year-old kids with no driver's license who couldn't buy even a pack of beers. We decided to call the brother of one of our friends. He was a 22-year-old. He had a car driver's license, and we would go anywhere we wanted with him. He agreed to drive us around, only if we paid his gas. We agreed. Why not? He said that a new club had just opened and that we needed to go there. He said that he could make us some fake IDs. We didn't care much about details. We just wanted to get drunk and have some fun. My mother was working that day, and I told her that we would be in our basement. So, the night had begun. We got ready and went to the club. The fake IDs worked perfect, and the security wasn't even suspicious about anything. The club was perfect, and there were a lot of people. I know that I started drinking and drinking. It was a good vibe. But my eyes were blurry, and I couldn't feel my legs anymore. The alcohol was getting into my head. Then we got in the car. And, from this moment, I don't remember anything else. Apparently, I fell asleep. But I couldn't sleep for long, my body was aching, and there were a lot of noises around. I tried to call my mom and ask her what was going on with these noises, but I couldn't even talk. Then, I decided to wake up. My head felt like it was going to explode. I woke up, and the strangest thing happened. I wasn't home. I wasn't at my friend's house. I wasn't in a car. I was at a parking lot near a restaurant, and I had slept there all night. I was shocked, and I didn't know what was going on. There were people around me, and they were looking at me. I woke up acting like everything was fine. At first, I thought that this might have been a joke, a prank, but I kept looking around, and I couldn't see my friends. It was just me. And, the strangest part of this whole experience was that I didn't even know in what city I was. It took me some minutes trying to figure out what had happened yesterday. But I couldn't think of anything. I searched in my pockets, and I couldn't find my phone, my wallet, or my fake ID. I was hoping that this would be a dream, but it wasn't. It was a very hot day, and my mouth was dry from drinking last night. I decided to wait on that same spot that I was when I woke up. Maybe my friends could be looking for me somewhere. I found a shadow, and I waited. I waited for an hour, but I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to go home. But I needed to call someone to get me. Nowadays everyone has a phone in their pocket, so I thought to ask someone to borrow their phone just for a call. There was an old woman there, and I asked her. She seemed scared of me. She said to me, "Go away," as she was holding her purse like I was going to steal it. She was so rude. Since I was near a restaurant, I decided to get there and maybe they could help me. There were a lot of people there eating and enjoying their time. The restaurant smelled so good, and I was getting hungry. But, as I was walking, everyone was looking at me strangely. As I was about to ask the waiter there, I came across my own reflection in the mirror. You should have seen me. I was scared of myself. I was looking like a crazy person. My hair was all messed up. My face and clothes were covered in dirt. My pants were ripped. Now I know why that woman was looking at me that way. I was looking homeless. I ran as fast as I could from the restaurant. That's when I started getting more scared because I felt like nobody was going to help me. I was walking and just thinking that was going to happen next. There were a lot of bakeries with the name of the city that I was. I was in Prizren. I didn't know how I got there. I came across a fountain. Nobody was around me, so I decided to wash my face and hair to look normal. After that, I was looking a little bit decent. Now I just needed to call someone and find the way to the bus station. As I was walking, I came across a group of boys of the same age as me. I asked if I could borrow their phone, and I explained to them what had happened to me. They started laughing, and they looked like some cool kids. They asked me if I ate, and I told them no. They said that we should go somewhere to eat, and that's what we did. The first person that I called was my mother. She must have been so worried for me. I called and told her that I was all right, but I didn't tell her where I was. She kept saying that she had been calling on my phone, but it wasn't working. She said that she had been planning something for my birthday and that I needed to be home at a certain time. But I was so far from my home, and I didn't know if I could make it. Then I called my friends, and they were looking for me too, but they said that they couldn't come to get me. I ate the food that my new friends had just paid for. But now I felt sorry for asking them for money for the bus ticket. I would sound so selfish. So I didn't. But they told me the road to the bus station. I arrived there, and I had to wait for some minutes until the bus driver started driving. I had some minutes to think about what I will do, but I couldn't think of anything. I got on the bus hoping that they would not ask for the ticket's money. There were a lot of people on the bus, and I could barely find a seat. This way, I thought that they would not notice me. But they did. They said that they felt sorry, but they couldn't accept me without a ticket. They had to get me out of the bus in the middle of the road. I got so embarrassed when they kicked me out. But I had to get home, and I only had some hours left. I decided to get out on the road and see if I was lucky enough for someone to give me a drive. I waited some minutes, and the day was almost over. It was getting darker, and I was so tired. I just needed to take a long nap in my warm bed. Then, when I was about to lose hope, a car pulled next to me, honking and saying to get in. I got in without even looking who the driver was. It could be a psychopath, a serial killer. But I didn't care at all. Luckily, I got in and saw a group of girls. There were 3 girls, and they were from Pristina. They were from the same city as me, but I had no idea who they were. They were on a road trip to Prizren. It felt so good just sitting in the car and looking from the window, knowing that I am going home. The road to home was long, but I slept half the way. I only had an hour left before I would arrive home, so my mom wouldn't notice where I was. Then, I had arrived at my city, finally. The girls couldn't drive me exactly to my neighborhood, but I ran so fast. I came in the house, and the lights were off, and I heard someone shouting, "Surprise!" The whole family had come to wish me a happy birthday, just like what I needed. They were surprised when they saw me. I looked like I was chased by some dogs. But, I couldn't tell what had happened to me because my mother would kill me. I blew the candles of my birthday cake. I stayed there for some good minutes and immediately went to sleep. My mom didn't suspect anything, and I was glad. The next day, I slept till afternoon. It was the best sleep that I've ever had. I decided to meet up with my friends and talk about what had happened the night before. They said that I've had found some friends in the club from Prizren and that I insisted on going with them. They thought that I wasn't that drunk. I still don't know who they were and what we did. Then, suddenly, I got a message from someone. Someone had sent me some pictures, saying, "We had so much fun." It was me, and I was with the guys from Prizren. We had made a lot of pictures together. I still haven't met with them and found out exactly what happened. But, I just wanted to tell my story and tell everyone that you should drink a very reasonable amount. It is important to have fun, but
I am Lisi, and I am only 16-year-old. Months ago, something had happened to my family and me, so I decided to tell my story. Get ready to get goosebumps. I was born and raised in Jylland. We are one small family, but a happy one. I live with my parents, and I am the only child. My grandparents had passed away very early when I was a baby. But, my mom says that I used to love them so much. I often think about them and how life would be if they were still alive. Even though I am big now, my mom still treats me like a baby. But I can't complain, though. I am a mama's boy. When I am home, most of the time I spend with my mother. My mom doesn't work, so she is always home. On the other hand, my father works in Switzerland and he is never home. But it doesn't go an hour that my mom and dad don't text each other. I try as much to stay home with her because I don't want her to feel alone. But it's hard, especially when you are a 16-year-old and your friends are going out and being rebellious. But my parents have sacrificed a lot for me. Staying home with my mother is the least that I can do. When my father isn't home, I feel like I become the father of the house. I think that I must be brave and I must do the most to make my mother feel safe. 5 years ago, we were in a very terrible economic situation. I was a kid, but I remember so much. I remember how stressed my parents were. My father worked different jobs, but he was not getting paid enough. My mother couldn't work because she had to stay home and look after me. We never had vacations, and we never went somewhere fancy. There were times when we could barely find food to eat. I was the only kid at school who would pack lunch and all the others were going out and eating. There were times that I felt left out. I like to remember the past because I see how much our lives have changed now. A lot has changed in 5 years. Since there weren't many good jobs, my father decided to leave our country and go to Switzerland. The fact that he would be far from us broke his heart. But it was the only solution. I remember how scared my mother was and how she would lock all the doors of our houses all the time. But our city, Jylland, is very safe. We were always safe here. My dad comes to visit us every 3 months. My mom is the happiest when dad is here. We are all happier now. Life is good. We have a roof upon our heads, good food, and warm clothes. These are the most important things, says my mom. But, on the other hand, my dad is different. He is always looking for more. He never settles down. Now that we are in an ideal economic situation, he thinks we should enjoy it and not feel guilty. I am not the type of person who wants expensive stuff, but my dad is. One day, as we talked on FaceTime, he said that he had a surprise for us. Guess what? He had bought a Tesla, a white brand new Tesla. This car was very trendy and everybody seemed to love it. I have heard about it and there were times when we would talk with my friends about it. I couldn't believe that my dad had bought it. It is a car that can drive itself. It's insane how far technology has gone. After some weeks, my dad had come and it was time for me to see the new Tesla. I was speechless. You should be 18-year-old to get your driver's license in my country. I don't have one yet. But my dad still let me drive it. It felt so good driving the Tesla. My heart was racing and my legs were shaking. We even tried the option to let the car drive itself. My mother was scared of it. But I loved it. Every time that my dad comes back, we go on vacation. This way we can spend more time together. Plus, it was summer and I was out of school. This time we decided to go to Elsinge, Montenegro. We had never been there, but people always seemed to love and have a good time there. We didn't care that we didn't know the road, Tesla got our back. It was a very hot day, so we couldn't wait and arrive there and have a cold swim. We didn't waste time. We took some clothes, some food for the road and decided to start the journey. It was a long road ahead of us. There were times when our dad would put the Tesla on its self-driving mode. His hands would be out of the wheel, but we would still feel safe. We started our journey very late afternoon and it was beginning to get dark outside. I slept some hours and when I woke up, it was pitch dark. My mom was asleep too. We were driving and driving. There were no lights, no cars, no humans. We could barely see. There were a lot of mountains and the road was getting bumpy. At first, we thought we were going on the wrong way, but the GPS told us that that was the right road for our wanted destination. We were looking for a gas station to stop and rest a little, but we couldn't see any. It was summer, but the road was foggy. That was where we started getting worried. At that moment, we were just hoping that the sun would rise, and this way, we would feel safer. We couldn't find any gas station, so we decided to stop the car and just have a little bit of fresh air. We parked the car on the side of the road. My parents were smoking a cigarette and we were just having a conversation. It was so dark. The moon was the only light. The silence was loud. Suddenly, a wild deer comes running so fast towards me. He pushed me to the ground. I was so scared because the deer was so big and it caught me off guard. We couldn't stay outside anymore because we thought they might be other wild animals, which could be dangerous. We got in the car and decided to continue our journey. After some hours, my dad noticed that there weren't any street signs anymore. It had been hours since we had seen a car or a human. We didn't have an internet connection. But, since we had never been there, we thought that this would be the right road. We decided to trust the car, even though the road became harder and harder. We couldn't sleep anymore. We would just stare at the road and see where it would take us. My dad thought that it would be better if we would stop the car and ask for help. But the car wasn't stopping at all. We tried and tried, but the car just drove. We couldn't understand what was happening. We were so stressed. We were trapped inside of our car and we couldn't get out. The car took us inside some big mountains, then it stopped. It was even darker. There was nothing around us. We were left with so little food and we all needed to go to the bathroom, but the door was still locked. We fell asleep that way and then we woke up to the noise of the car starting up. My dad wasn't even touching the wheel anymore at this point. We were in the early minutes of sunrise and now we could see where we were. We were in a big field with nothing around us. The car started driving and driving. Then, it took us to a very strange place. There was a big, scary, abandoned building. The car got parked near there. Then, the doors of the car got opened. It was like the car was communicating with us, telling us to go outside of the car. At this point, we didn't care where we were. We just wanted to get out of the car and be safe. We got out, and I had never felt freer than at that moment. It was early morning. It was silent, and the only thing we could hear was the birds singing. We needed this fresh air. But there was nothing around us except that building. The car closed its doors, and now we were left outside. We didn't know if we would ever get back in our car or if we could ever return home. We thought it would be better if we walked around and asked for help. Maybe someone could be there. We walked around the building, but nothing was there. The building was old and musty. It had a massive door, and we couldn't see what was inside of it. We decided to open the door and find out. We walked in, and we noticed that it was someone's home. But maybe that someone had lived there over 50 years before. The furniture was untouched and full of dust. There was an old, fat television and an old piano. There were still some dirty dishes in the kitchen. The building had 3 floors. And we decided to go and see what was in there. There was a big room with over 20 beds. We thought that this might have been an orphanage. We wanted to see the 3rd floor too, but the stairs were so old and musty we were afraid that we would fall. We decided to go out and see if the doors of the cars got opened. We arrived at the living room and tried to open the door. We couldn't open the door. We were so scared and we didn't know what was going on. We felt like we were on the set of a horror film. As we were trying to figure out how to open the door, we heard the sound of the piano. It was playing itself. That was the moment we realized that this had to be with something abnormal, something out of this world. I don't believe in ghosts, either my parents, but what's the explanation for all the things happening to us? The piano play lasted for 3 good minutes. My body was shaking, not knowing what was going to happen next. Then the piano stopped and we just stayed here in complete silence. Suddenly, we heard some steps, like someone was coming to the living room. But no one was coming downstairs. We were stuck there for an hour, listening and looking around. Then we heard steps like some people were coming downstairs running to the living room. There were no people, no ghosts, just some dust flying around. That's when the door got opened and the dust went outside of the door. We were shocked because it looked like some spirit had just gone outside of the house. My mother was crying. We didn't know if we would be safer inside the house or outside. At that moment, we heard someone honking a car. And we thought that somebody had come to recuse us. But no. Our Tesla was honking at us like calling us to get in the car. We went outside and the car opened the doors. We got in and the car wasn't starting itself like it used to. My dad tried to start it and it did. It looked like we were in charge of the car now. We drove some miles and the GPA was back and we noticed that we were nowhere near our destination. We were back on the streets and we saw cars and people and millions of gas station stops. We didn't know if we should ask for help. What would we say to everyone? We decided to drive home because this whole road trip got too weird. I haven't told anyone this story until now. We still don't know if we will keep the Tesla. My dad's theory of all this happening was that somehow there were old spirits on that abandoned building that needed to be free. We were the chosen ones to do that. Why us, though? My name is Art and I have just turned 18-year-old. I wanted to share something that had happened and hopefully you don't make the same mistake that I did. I was born and raised in Pristina. I have always lived with my parents and my little brother. But now that I had turned 18-year-old, it was time for me to get out of the house. I was ready to live on my own and make my own rules. Plus, my parents don't understand that I need my space. My parents still treat me like I am a baby, but I am not. They are the sweetest parents and they care about me, but I just couldn't continue this way. My mother doesn't work, but my father owns the biggest shoe company. I love working there. I have been working with my father since I was 10 years old. Maybe I didn't do much back then, but I just loved being there with my father and seeing what he does. My father works very hard and we have always had a beautiful, easy life because of him. That's why I moved out. I work and I have my own money. But my place is very near my parents' house. They visit me almost every day. It has been months since I have been living alone, and I love it. Everything is easier, and I can do whatever I want to. At first, I only lived eating noodles and fast food. But, I have been watching some cooking show videos, and I have learned a lot. I am not going to school this year. I decided to take a gap year and make some money. My parents hate this fact, but I can't work if I go to school. My parents don't understand how the world works nowadays. Nowadays it's essential if you have money, especially being a boy. If you don't work and have money, it's hard to keep a girlfriend too. However, I never had a problem with girls. In my school, they used to call me Casanova. And that's what my story is about. Girls. Girls are trouble, and everybody knows this. They are the devil itself, but we're still crazy about them, right? In Pristina, there are a lot of beautiful and hot girls. Some of them are easy to catch, and some aren't. 3 months ago, I was scrolling through my Instagram feed and I came across a girl named Rita. Her photos were breathtaking and she looked so beautiful. I decided to follow her. I take care of my Instagram because girls will not follow you back if you don't have good pictures. She followed me back, so I decided to text her. She was from the city too, but I had never seen her before. I texted Rita a lot and she seemed such a fun person. After 1 week, I asked to see her live. At first, she kept saying that it was too early for us to meet. But what if you are photoshopping your pics and you don't turn out to be how I wanted? I don't judge girls on their looks, but I don't want someone to lie to my face. You can never trust social media nowadays. I'd rather see her live and see if we vibe and not waste time. So, that's what Rita and I did. We met. I went to her place and picked her up. I was driving my dad's car since I still didn't have my own. My dad has a fast and expensive car and girls love it. Rita loved it too. When we met, Rita seemed a little bit shy. I couldn't tell if that was her personality or it was because of the first time seeing each other. It's understandable to be shy and excited on the first date. But, Rita looked even better than in the photos. She was blonde, tall, skinny, and had a beautiful smile with perfect teeth. She was my type. We went to a sushi place and we both enjoyed our little date. Days went by and I had already asked her for another date. We could go to my place, or I don't know, whatever she would like. But Rita had very strict parents and they didn't let her go out as often as she wanted. Plus, she had brothers. She was afraid that her brothers would find out that she was going out with me. Brothers are very overprotective over their sisters. So, I didn't insist on going out. I tried to understand her. Plus, I didn't want to deal with her brothers. But, I am only 18-year-old and I am not looking for a serious relationship. I am still young to settle down. I have my whole life ahead of me. It's hard to enjoy life while being in a serious relationship. Rita couldn't go out with me, but I could go with other girls. I mean, why not? I have nothing to lose. This time, a girl followed me. Girls never follow first, and that was strange to me. I followed her back to see who she was. Her name was Tatiana. Just by reading her name, she sounded so hot and beautiful to me. She accepted my following request so fast. She had over 80 posts. She clearly enjoys her life. I stalked her, and it looked like she was some years older than me. I didn't want to text her immediately. She was the first one to follow me, and I was just curious if she would be the first one to text too. After some days, that's what she did. We texted, and I learned a lot about her. Apparently, she is from Germany, but she is on her winter vacation here in Pristina. She said she was here for some months only, staying at her family's place. I thought to myself, some months are enough for me to go out with this girl. I was still texting Rita, but that didn't mean that I was in a relationship. So, I decided to ask Tatiana out. It had been only some hours since I started texting with her, but we decided to meet. I told Rita that I went to sleep early that night since she was texting to me non-stop. She didn't have to know. I met up with Tatiana. She had black hair and was a little bit shorter than me. It was January, but she wore a very short dress and high boots. I could tell that she had been in a tan salon. Tatiana was completely a different type from Rita. Was it possible to like two types of girls at the same time? It was a little late and we had no idea where to go. She knew that I was living alone, so she said that we could go to my place. I am the one who usually tells girls to go to my place. But, we went to my place. We talked and talked for hours. Tatiana was a very open-minded girl and not shy at all. I loved that. She was the first one to kiss me. It is so hot when the girl makes the first move. But, we stopped at the kiss. It had been weeks since I was texting Rita and Tatiana. Rita and I had our first kiss too. It had been my first month anniversary of Rita and me and Tatiana. There were times that I felt guilty talking to both of them at the same time. But I liked them both. They were so different and I liked this fact. What Rita didn't have, Tatiana did. What Tatiana didn't have, Rita did. I was having a great time with both of them. I could make time for everything. But there were times when Rita would ask to look through my phone. I'd tell her that we should just end it all if she didn't trust me. There were times when Tatiana would call me and I'd be with Rita. But thank God, none of them didn't find out about this. It had been 3 months and there was 1 week left until Valentine's Day. I was hoping that Rita couldn't go out that day or Tatiana. I can't go out with both of them. At first, I didn't talk to any of them about Valentine's Day. But they were the ones that kept talking and making plans. I couldn't say no. This is where everything goes wrong. A new restaurant just got opened in our city and both of them said that it would be a great idea to go there for Valentine's. What a coincidence. At first, I panicked and I didn't know what to do. But then I got an idea. I thought to myself that I could go during the daytime with Rita and then during the night with Tatiana. Or either way, it didn't matter. Luckily, they agreed. Rita said that she could go out for Valentine's Day during the daytime. So that's what I will do. First I will go with Rita and then Tatiana. Valentine's Day had come and I started getting ready. I bought flowers for both of them and I wrote a cute little note. I was just waiting for Rita to tell me to go and pick her up. I was waiting and wasting time. She wasn't texting me back. Then, she called me saying that she couldn't go out immediately. She said that her brothers were there. I decided to wait, thinking that it would be only some minutes or something. But, no. She made me wait for 2 hours. It was almost time for me to go and pick up Tatiana. She was texting me and telling me that she was getting ready. She was sending me pics of her outfits and making me choose. God, she looked like a goddess in every dress. But I was sweating. The clock was ticking and it was time to go and pick up Tatiana. All of a sudden, Rita said that she could go out now. I went to her house without wasting time and we went to the restaurant. She looked beautiful and happy to see me. I put my phone on silent just in case Tatiana calls me. Rita and I ordered some food and we were just talking and enjoying our time. Suddenly, I get a text from Tatiana saying, "Where are you?" I needed to go and take her. I told Rita I had to go to the bathroom and I drove so fast that I almost had an accident. I picked her up and now I had to make sure that we would be sitting somewhere far from our table with Rita. I said to the restaurant owner that we wanted a private place. Luckily he found us one. I felt safe there. It was just Tatiana and me. I told her that I needed to go to the bathroom. I went immediately to Rita's. She was waiting for me. So I planned to stay some minutes at Rita's and then some minutes at Tatiana's without getting caught. I was getting tired from going back and forth but luckily they weren't noticing anything. I just wanted this night to be over. As I was staying with Rita, she said that she had to go to the bathroom. That was the perfect time for me to go and talk to Tatiana for a bit. But Tatiana wasn't there. Then, I saw both of them getting out of the bathroom. I panicked so hard and went outside for a cigarette. I was so scared. A million questions were running through my mind. Do they know each other? Was it just a coincidence that they were at the same time in the bathroom? I decided to think positively and go on with my night. I went to Tatiana's. And there she was. Rita was there too. I couldn't believe my eyes. I felt like I could faint, but I tried to play it cool. They were laughing with each other. The first thing that came out of my mouth was, "Do you guys know each other?" Tatiana spilled wine on my face and said yes. Both of them planned this whole Valentine's Day. They played me exactly how I played them. They said that they knew earlier that I was talking with both of them, but they were waiting on me to tell them the truth. Both of them seemed to be very heartbroken. It made me realize how wrong I was. I liked Rita and Tatiana, but now I had lost both of them. I didn't know what I was doing until I saw them together. That Valentine's Day made me a whole different person. Someone could have done the same thing to me. Someone could have done this to my mother, to my sister. I just wanted to share my story and tell everyone that you shouldn't be playing with people's feelings. Don't get into a relationship unless you're willing to commit.
My name is Trisa, and I have just turned 18-year-old. I decided to tell a story, but it is not just any story. It is my story and what had happened to my family and me. I was born and raised in Skopje. I live with my 2 beautiful parents and my little brother Troji. Troji is only 1 year younger than me, but he still acts like a bit of a child and annoys me. I've always wanted a sister, and my parents tried for another baby, but I guess it is meant to be just Troji and me. But I don't complain because my mother is like a sister to me. Troji and I had an amazing childhood. It was so good growing up with our grandparents. They both had passed away this year from COVID. It doesn't go a day that I don't think about them. I miss them so much. But our lives have always been good. My parents worked so hard for the life that we have now. My father is an anesthesiologist, and he makes pretty good money from it. I heard that it is the highest paying job in the world. My mother, on the other hand, is a teacher. Everyone loves her. Well, who couldn't love her? She is the kindest and most loving. Even though my parents have completely different lives, they still manage to understand each other and love each other since day one. I have just graduated from high school, and I am very excited about what will happen next in my life. High school wasn't the best experience, and I am so glad that it is over. Life has become exactly like in the movies. I could hardly find a good friendship at my high school since everyone is so mean nowadays. But now, we had just welcomed my favorite season ever, summer. And life is just good. I love summer. The days get longer and warmer, and life generally becomes better. Since my parents work all the time, and my brother and I are at school. The only chance to go somewhere as a family is during summer. We always go with our cousins. It's always fun because they have 3 daughters. During vacations, you need to have someone that you have fun with. I can't have fun with my brother. He wants different things. He is a boy. But, this summer our cousins couldn't come with us. I was so sad and angry when I heard about this. At first, I didn't want to go at all, but it was summer, and I had to make the most of it. So we decided to have a vacation. We decided on going to Italy, Amalfi Coast. Italy has always been a dream of all of us. We decided that we would go by car. And that's what we did. There was a long road ahead of us. Troji and I were sitting in the back seat of the car. I got my snacks and my headphones. My obsession right now is a rock band called Arctic Monkeys. Troji would always take my headphones and make my music stop, and this way. We would fight a bit. It was a long road trip with fights and laughs. We would make stops here and there until we arrived at our destination. And here it was, the famous Amalfi Coast. It looked better than the pictures. We decided to stay at a hotel that was near the beach and away from the city. There were a lot of tourists, and we needed some peaceful time. The hotel was very luxurious, and we all had a room to ourselves. But we shared a living room, and it was more like an apartment rather than a hotel. The view from my balcony was crazy. You could see the whole ocean. You could scream all you want, but no one would hear you. But that day we were so tired, we decided to sleep so we could be more energetic and enjoy the day the next day. The next day arrived, and we were so excited. I put on my favorite bikini and was ready to take a tan. We decided to stay by the beach. I love napping on the beach, it's just so peaceful. We didn't do much during the daytime. In the evening we decided to go and have some dinner. We wanted to go to places that weren't so near to our hotel, so we had to go by car. But it was only an 8-minute car ride or something. We arrived, and there were a lot of tourists. You could literally be lost in there. I was holding my mother's hand like I was only a 10-year-old. We ate dinner that night and then went back to our hotel and fell asleep. I wish we didn't get back to our hotel. I wish we didn't sleep. We did our thing, not knowing that something terrible was going to happen the next day. My alarm clock woke me up in the morning because we always wake up early during vacation. It was almost 7 a.m. I decided to sleep a little bit more, knowing well that my mother would wake me up. I slept and realized that nobody had come to my room to wake me up. I looked at the clock, and it was 8 a.m. There were no missed calls and no messages. I took my phone, just like I always do in the mornings. And I started scrolling. I noticed that the Wi-Fi wasn't working. I was surprised how this luxurious apartment had problems with Wi-Fi. I decided to go to the other rooms and wake my parents and my brother. Maybe they had missed the alarm, I thought. But I couldn't open the door. The door is locked. Some minutes went by, and I didn't panic at all until I heard someone begging the door. It was Mom, Dad, and my brother. Their rooms had been locked too. We could barely hear each other, but we were trying so hard to communicate. Their Wi-Fi and their phone weren't working. There was no signal. It had been 3 hours, and no one was coming to help us. Even our balcony door was blocked and couldn't get opened. Hours went by, and we were getting hungry and worried. My brother and I were in separate rooms. My parents were so worried that something terrible was going to happen. My dad couldn't stop a second without bagging the door. Then all of a sudden, we heard a noise. Someone came into the apartment and was walking around the living room. I could hear the steps. Then all of a sudden, a room got opened. It was my parents' room. Someone just went inside our parents' room, and our parents immediately started screaming. I was so scared something bad had happened to them. I could hear them talking, but I couldn't hear clearly. Then that person went out of the apartment. And I screamed, "Are you all right?" Luckily my parents answered, and they said that someone had just come to their room. They said that that person had a mask on, and they couldn't see who it was. That person had asked my parents for a big amount of money. Money was never an issue for my parents, so of course, they agreed to give the money. We noticed that my brother, Troji, was not talking at all as we were talking. We were screaming his name, but he was not answering. It had been hours, and we were so worried. I couldn't help but cry. Then that dangerous stranger came into the apartment again and told us loudly that they had taken Troji and would not bring him back unless they saw the amount of money they had asked for. They left us only one boiled egg, just so we could starve. That day was one of the most challenging days that I have ever experienced. I was so scared of Troji and where he was. My parents were crying non-stop. I wanted to hug them and tell them that everything is going to be all right. I fell asleep crying, and then I woke up by the noise of the door of the apartment. That guy had come back and gone to my parents' room and took my dad. They took my dad so he could withdraw money from the bank and give it to them. My dad tried to ask for help on the street, but the guy said to him that if he tried to do something stupid, they would kill him. My dad got even more worried now and said that he would not give the money unless he saw Troji. But they said to him that Troji was going to be waiting in the apartment and that we were good to go and free. But my dad came back, and Troji wasn't there. We were all so stressed, and I hadn't gotten out of the room for 2 days now. There was a lot of questions running through our mind. Who are they? How did they know that we were here and that my father was rich? Is it someone we know? I know that I said that Troji is annoying and that I hated him, but he is still my little brother. And I care about him. I missed his stupid voice and our stupid little fights. Another night had come, and we all fell asleep. I woke up in the morning and noticed that my room door was opened. I ran so fast like a kid on Christmas Day. I ran so fast to my parents' room to see if they were all right. They were sleeping. I woke up them hugging so hard. We were happy that we were together, at least. But our little Troji wasn't there yet. We ran to see if the door of the apartment had been opened. But, no. It was still closed. My dad tried to find ways so that we could escape. But, nothing was near us. No houses. No restaurants. Then it hit us that it would be better if we just stayed and waited. They could bring Troji anytime now. After some hours, a car pulled to the apartment. We took a look from the window and noticed that Troji was there. We were so happy. He came running into the apartment and had a key. He opened the door of our apartment. That was the first time that I hugged Troji. He explained to us everything that had happened to him. He said that the guys took him and held him in a house. He said that they didn't do anything bad to him. Then, we went to the person who owned the apartment and told them about everything that had happened to us. We decided to look at the cameras and see if we could find the suspects. We noticed that there were 2 guys, and one of them had no masks on. The police then had identified the suspect and then arrested him. Apparently, the guy was a tourist, and he just wanted to make some extra money. He didn't know who we were or where we were from. He had followed us that night that we went out. I am writing this while we are going on our way home. Our vacation had turned into a nightmare, and we couldn't get our money back. But we didn't care. We were glad that we were all right and together. We just wanted to get home safe. It's crazy what people do for money, and they are capable of putting lives in danger. This experience made me realize that anything can happen in a very unpredictable way. This experience didn't make me love Italy less. It was just bad timing. I can't wait to visit it again.
Guys, I am Rona, and I just turned 16-year-old. I wanted to take a minute from my chaotic life and tell you this. A piece of my life. Everyone has their own story, and I do too. I come from the tiny city of Kosovo, Gjilin. I love Gjilin. I have spent all of my life here. But, Gjilin doesn't have a lot to offer. I always dreamt that I would do something big in my life. I have dreams that I can't do here. And that's where my story takes place. I have just graduated high school, and I am so ready to take the world. I have always shown a love for art since I was a kid. I could literally draw before I could talk. I love everything related to art. I love going to museums. I love losing myself in paintings. And that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to go to an art school. But, there is a problem. There isn't any art school in Gjilin. But there is one big art school just an hour away, in Pristina. And that's where I want to go and pursue my dream. I live with my parents, grandparents, and 2 little sisters. At first, I was so afraid to tell my family that I wanted to go to Pristina. My parents work, but they don't earn as much as we need. My mother is a janitor at a bank, and my father is a taxi driver. If I decide to go to Pristina, I have to live there. I have to eat there.
I have to pay for my school there. Plus, Pristina is way more expensive than my city. I know that my parents can't afford to send me there, even though they have always tried their best for us. But, I want to go there. I want to spend the rest of my life doing something I love and enjoy. One day, as I was scrolling on my phone, I came across some news. The art school applications had started, and there weren't so many places left. It is not easy to get into this school. You must be very talented, but I believe I am. I felt like I was just wasting my time, so I decided to tell my parents about my plan. They told me that we couldn't afford it with their eyes full of tears. I felt bad and angry at the same time. That day I spent the whole evening crying. It felt like I was going to lose my dream forever. Then, my grandparents came into my room and tried to talk to me, saying that everything would be just fine. And, they were right. Things took place. They gave me some very good news. They had saved money for years and wanted to give them to me to pay for my school. I didn't want to take their money, I felt bad. But, they insisted. They said, "We are old. Our lives had already ended. You have a whole future ahead of you. Take our money and go follow your dreams." Why are grandparents the kindest people in the entire world? I couldn't refuse the money. I told my parents about it, and they were so happy. I decided that the next day I would apply to the school. The next day had come, and that's what I did. I took the bus to Pristina. I was nervous and shaking until I saw the test. It was easy. The results would take only 3 days. It was the most stressful 3 days of my life. A million questions ran through my mind, and I was overthinking everything. What would I do if I can't get in? I'd be in a complete depression. But, one morning, I got an email. Guess what? I got in. I felt so happy and excited. My dream was only some steps away. But, I didn't know that things would get more challenging and complicated. Now I had to find a place to live in Pristina and some part-time job to pay rent and my food. After some research, I had found a very cute little flat that was only some minutes away from the art school. But, the rent was so expensive. It would take 2 people to pay for it. I couldn't find a roommate. My friends had already found their roommates. As I was searching for a job near my school, I had across an announcement that somebody had made. The announcement had said they needed a roommate near the place where I wanted to take the flat. So, I called that number. The person agreed to share the flat with me and pay the rent together. But, there was only one problem. That person was a boy. At first, I didn't want to agree, but the school would start next week. I didn't have time to think. I decided not to tell my family about this because they would get the wrong ideas. Plus, I was sure that I would never see that guy. I'd be busy. I would be busy with school and studying. Plus, I had already applied for a part-time job at a coffee shop. That means that I will not have any contact with him whatsoever. The time had come for me to get out of my nest and become an adult. It was moving day. I packed as much as I could. I love to cook, so I brought a lot of stuff with me, some sauces that my mother made, and some other stuff. I decided to meet up with the guy and get the keys to our flat. I didn't even know his name and how he looked. It could be anyone. He could be a killer. A psychopath? All I know is that he is going to the same school as I am, art school. I arrived there, and at the door of our flat, a boy was waiting there. He had suitcases. It was him. I felt shy when I first saw him. He was so tall, and he looked so aesthetic. His style was out of this world. His name was Eddie. We got into the flat. There were only 2 rooms and a living room. Our rooms were small and very near to each other. There was an old, cute tiny kitchen. We spent that whole day cleaning the flat and getting to know each other. I really felt like I could be best friends with Eddie. Eddie, the flat, and everything had good vibes. My parents had called me 3 times in just some hours. I still hadn't told them that my roommate was a boy. Eddie was an artist too. I had the chance to see some of his works, and they were mind-blowing. We noticed that we had some classes together, and we were glad. It's hard to start school without a friend. I slept so well the first night, like I was in my own house. But I had to wake up. A big day was ahead of me. The first day of school. I was in my PJ, scrolling through my phone, going to the bathroom. I forgot I was sharing the flat with someone. I ran into Eddie. He was going to the bathroom too. I got ready and arrived on the first day. The school was so beautiful and big. There were a lot of talented students there, and I could tell there was going to be competition. I can't say much about the first day because we didn't do much. After school, I had to go to my job at the coffee shop. I noticed that the coffee shop didn't have much work for me. Good for me. But the boss was so respectful. It was such a long day. I got tired and just wanted to sleep. I saw that Eddie was cooking in the kitchen when I got in. He goes, "I hope you like spaghetti." I was so surprised that he had cooked for me too. Plus, I love spaghetti. We talked about how our day went. I couldn't help but think how Eddie is the sweetest person that I've ever come across. I thought that it would be weird living with a guy, but I loved it. Eddie was making it so easy. Weeks went by, and everything was just fine. I visited my parents every weekend, but every time I would come back to Jylland, I would actually miss Eddie so much. We were getting so close with each other. We would draw together and talk about stuff that I had never talked about before with anyone. We would watch TV all night on our crappy couch and our crappy television. One night we actually fell asleep on our couch together, and when we woke up, we felt so shy. There were moments when I felt like we could actually like each other. One day I came back from work, and I saw Ed was painting a drawing. The living room was a total mess, and he was shirtless. He was all covered in paint and was smiling. That smile got me feeling like I could actually be into him. I got back from work one day, and I noticed that Ed wasn't home. He usually was home. I decided to make noodles for the both of us, since all we had been eating was pasta and fast food, and decided to wait for him to watch a movie together. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door, and it was Eddie. Eddie wasn't alone this time, he was with a girl. They were holding hands and laughing. He introduced me to her. She was so beautiful. She had long, sexy legs and hair. They didn't sit to watch the movie. They went and got into his room. Then Ed texts me saying, "Can you go out for a little bit?" I don't know why I felt so jealous and angry. I went out and didn't come back for some hours. I didn't want to disturb them. Then, I got home, and Ed was sitting on the couch. I didn't want to talk. I went to my room. I couldn't sleep but think. I was thinking about how I left my dream behind. I was lost spending time with Eddie, and all this time he had a girlfriend, and he didn't tell me. So, I decided that I would focus more on school from that night. That's what I came for, after all. Weeks went by, and we were communicating so cold. I did my best to avoid him. I tried not to be home all the time just to not see him. One day my parents came to my place in Pristina. I didn't know, and I wasn't home. Plus, they didn't know that my roommate was actually a guy. Ed had texted me that day saying that I should come home. I thought something bad had happened. I went home, and there they were, my parents. They were talking with Eddie, and then Eddie went outside. My parents were angry that I didn't tell them, but then they understood that I had no other choice. They had come to visit me with some bad news. My grandmother had died, and my heart broke into pieces. I couldn't believe it. I decided to go home to Jylland for a week to stay with my family during these hard times. I didn't communicate with Ed that whole week. A week went by, and it was time for me to follow the dream. I remember saying to myself that I would work even harder now for my grandmother. She wanted me to finish school. I went back to Pristina, and there Ed was. Eddie was feeling so sad about my grandmother. He made me cry with his words. We started hugging. I didn't know how much I needed that hug until we hugged. He was holding my face, telling me that everything was going to be fine, and then kissed me. I stood back, confused. I asked him about that mysterious girl that he was the other day. He said that that was nothing serious and that he liked me. I liked him too, but I didn't want to admit it. The following day I woke up to the noises of some suitcases. Eddie was leaving and saying that he got a job as an artist and would take a break from school for a year. Was it too late to confess my love for him? Was it too late to say to him that he shouldn't be going? I decided not to say a word, but I know for sure that I will miss him. He said that he would be back within a year. Till then, I will be working for my dream. And if Ed was meant—
I am Flutura, and just like everyone else, I have imperfections too. Yesterday I turned 16-year-old, and someone special had gifted me this diary. So I decided to write. People say that the best years of your life are the teenage years. But what they don't know is that life can be both beautiful and challenging at the same time. It's so hard to live your life when you aren't satisfied with yourself or when you don't feel comfortable in your skin. I've had a hard time with myself since I can even remember. My parents had named me Flutura for a reason. Flutura, in my language, means butterfly. The plan was not on naming me Flutura, but something had happened. I was born. My parents were so happy when I was born. I was the first child. I was healthy and chubby, just like every other perfect baby, except for one thing. I was born with a scar on my face, on the left side. When I was born, my parents were surprised and noticed that the scar looked just like a butterfly. And that's why they decided on naming me Flutura. My scar has always been my biggest insecurity. I remember how I always asked questions about how I was the only one with that scar. Even my parents hated this fact because there weren't many pictures of me when I was a baby. They don't show it, but that's what I think. After some years, something good had happened in our family. We had welcomed another baby, a baby girl. I was so young, but I remember I was so excited to have a baby sister. My parents were excited too. My baby sister turned out to be so perfect. No scars, no nothing. I remember I was so jealous. But I still am. The jealousy never faded away to this day. But still, our childhood was perfect. We lived in Pristina all of our lives. It was just me, my parents, and my little sister. However, I didn't know that my childhood would be the easy part of my life. I grew up, and the insecurity grew up with me. My friends would ask me about my scar. What had happened? What is that? Can you remove it? Why is it black? The question always made me feel bad about myself. It made me feel like I didn't belong there and that I was different. So, I tried to hide it. I never tied my hair up. When I was younger, I did a hairstyle to hide my scar, and it was embarrassing. I put all of my hair on my left side. My parents used to talk to me and make me feel better, but that wasn't enough. All of my friends are active on social media. They post pics of their face, their body, and outfits. But I just can't do that. All of my photos are only on my right side. My social media had become boring, so I had to close them. I started high school, and life has become even harder. I started doing makeup to hide my scar. I woke up extra early because my makeup took me 1 hour. But it's worth it. I feel normal, just like everyone else. All of my friends have had their first kiss, and they don't believe me when I say that I still didn't yet. I am not confident enough to let someone touch my face, put their hands on my hair, and kiss me. I am not confident because I have constantly been bullied and left behind. People would stare at me in public like I am an alien. Sometimes I just want to yell at them and say, "What are you looking at?" But life is easier for me during winter. I love winter. I love wearing a hat and a scarf, and this way, my scar is not even noticeable. But one day, something had happened. It was a snowy day, and I could barely see. I was walking home from school, and I was alone. The road was icy, and I didn't know. I fell on the ground so bad that I apparently fainted. I didn't even know what had happened that day until I woke up at the hospital. I didn't have my scarf on me, and my hair was up. There was a boy there. I didn't know who he was. I had never seen him before. He looked like he was the same age as me. Apparently, he was the one that saw me falling, and he helped me. The doctor had called my parents and said that they would be there in a minute. But I didn't care about that. I was just searching for my scarf so nobody would have seen my scar. But that was too late. He had seen my scar, but it didn't seem like he cared. He still was looking at me like I was a normal person. I thanked him for saving me, and then he left without even telling me his name. My parents came to get me, so we went home. The very next day, in the same place as I had fallen, the guy that helped me was there. I thought that maybe that's where he lived. I acted as if I was not seeing him, but he was looking at me. I was so glad that I had my scarf on and that he would not see my scar. He started walking towards me and said, "Hi, do you remember me?" I said yes. He said that he wanted to make sure that I wouldn't fall again. But that was just his excuse to see me again. But why would he want to see me again? He said that he wanted to meet up with me so we could get to know each other. We decided on a date for the next day. I was so excited and scared at the same time. I could barely sleep that night. The day of the date came so fast. I tried to look my best. I put on as much makeup as I could, so my scar wouldn't be noticeable. And I would look beautiful. We met up, even though we still didn't know each other's names. His name is Leon. The first thing he said to me was, "Why did you put on so much makeup?" He said that he liked me more without makeup. And nobody has said this to me before. It felt good. I felt beautiful around him. But Leon doesn't live around here. He has been at his uncle's for some months. The date went very well, and I learned a lot about him. I got his number, and he had been texting me non-stop. At first, I didn't want to tell my sisters or my friends about this date. God knows what can happen next. I don't want to jinx it. But, after some days of our date, as I was walking out of school, Leon was waiting for me. He didn't tell me that he was going to come. He wanted it to be a surprise. It was a surprise indeed, a good one. But I felt terrible since my friends didn't know a thing. They were so confused. But I told them that I'd explain to them everything and went on the next date with Leon. We went to this sushi place. I had never tried sushi before, but I liked it. When I am around him, I forget that I have a scar. He didn't even ask about it like it didn't exist. I wanted to be the first one to talk about it and just get over it, but I couldn't. I have never had a boyfriend before. The scar was always getting in my way. It's not that boys didn't love me because of my scar. It is just that I am never confident enough to let anyone love me. The next day, I decided to tell my friends about Leon. They had already seen him the other day. I owe them an explanation, even though we are not dating or anything. We meet up, and I hug them and start talking like usual. But I immediately felt like a cold vibe, like something wasn't all right. I asked them, "What's wrong?" They were so rude to me all of a sudden, saying, "You weren't going to tell us that you have a boyfriend." But I told them that Leon is not my boyfriend, he is just a friend. They didn't believe me. They were saying that I was not good enough for Leon and that he would leave me and be all alone. "Did he even see your scar?" they said. "How could he love you like that?" I couldn't even say anything. My heart was broken into pieces. I went home that day, and I couldn't figure out why my two best friends were acting that way. Was it jealousy? Because they are dying to have a boyfriend right now. Plus, Leon is so handsome, tall, and funny. He is just perfect. I always was the one that heard their endless stories about their first kisses, their first dates, and so on. I never got to say those things. And I was never jealous. I was happy for them. But was it true? All of the words they were saying. Maybe it's the truth that Leon would never want to date me. Maybe he just wanted a friend since he doesn't have who to stay with at this uncle's house. There were a lot of thoughts running through my mind. I couldn't help but cry all night. I felt so low and ugly. How can your own best friend make you feel so ugly? I was stupid to think that Leon would be into me. Leon was texting me non-stop that night, but I decided to not reply. I didn't want to talk to him anymore, and maybe it was for the best. I didn't want my heart to be broken. It had been 2 days since I hadn't gone to school, and I didn't reply to any of Leon's messages. I didn't want to see anyone, and my parents understood me even though I didn't tell them any reasons. But I couldn't miss school all my life. I didn't want to walk to school because I was afraid that I would run onto Leon. So my mother drove me to school. When I arrived at school, Leon was there. He came there only to tell me so we could meet after school since I wasn't replying to his messages. So that's what we did. We had a date after school. But for then, I had to go to my classes. There were my best friends there. I didn't want to talk to them, but they insisted. They told me how bad they felt and that they didn't mean any of the words that they said. But I couldn't forgive them. They attacked me in my biggest insecurity. I told them that I needed time to decide if I wanted to talk to them or not. The school was over for that day, and it was time for me and Leon to meet. When we met, he hugged me so tight and so long. I was surprised. He told me how much he missed me and how he wondered why I wasn't replying to him back. My voice was shaking, but I told him exactly what had happened. I could tell that he felt sorry for me, but I didn't want that. I don't want people to feel sorry for me. He put my hair away and looked at me. He came closer to me and kissed my scar. And then he kissed my lips. He asked me to be his girlfriend, and I had never felt so beautiful. During this time with Leon, I had realized that imperfections are beautiful and that the right people can make you feel so loved. That's what Leon did. He made me feel beautiful as I should. He gave me this diary so I could write about the things that make me sad, and he said that after I write them down, they won't feel as important as I would think. This helped me a lot. I have been talking with my best friends too because now no one can make me feel not beautiful. I feel beautiful, and that's what matters.
My name is Hira, and I just wanted to share some pieces of my life. Because, why not? I have just turned 18-year-old. Everyone says that the teenage years are the best years of your life. It's the time when you grow while making mistakes, and I believe that. I come from the capital city of Kosovo, Pristina. My city has changed a lot in recent years. People are getting more open-minded, and I like that. People are dating whoever they want, doing whatever they want. My mother always says that women suffered a lot back in the old days and never raised their voices. But, now, it's different. Women don't tolerate anymore, and that's how it should be. Pristina is a great city to grow in. I wouldn't change my hometown for anything in the world. There is so much to do and see. So many little coffee shops where you can enjoy the day. The nightlife is crazy too. My house is in the center of the city. You can see the whole city from it. The views are breathtaking, especially during sunsets. We have this little balcony where I spent almost all my time there. I live with my parents, sister, and our chubby golden retriever puppy, Buna. My parents both work as teachers. They have the same personality, and sometimes we think that they are one person. I have never seen a love like theirs. My dad always wanted to have a son. But I am glad that we don't have a brother. All of my friends that have brothers complain. They say that they get very overprotective even when they shouldn't be. They can be jealous over what to wear and where to go to. I would hate it if someone controlled me and told me what to wear. I was raised not to be controlled by anyone. I love my freedom, and my parents have always respected it. This year is my last year of high school. I will graduate soon. My experience in high school has been very easy for me. I am saying this because I feel like it is not the same for everybody. There are times when I witness people getting bullied over simple things, and I always try to stand up for them. But I think that our school and our teachers are the ones to blame. They don't care about what happens. They just take their money and go, no matter how destroyed your mental health is. Like everyone else, I have been in a bad mental health state too. I have just ended a 2-year relationship. 2 years ago, I was a completely different person. I fell in love. I fell in love with a boy called Roan. He loved me too. We were so young and dumb, but somehow we managed to fall in love and make it last for whole 2 years. Those 2 years had their ups and downs. He was my first everything. My first relationship. My first breakup. We would see each other every day. My family knew about him, and his family knew about me. His mother loved me, and she still texts me to this day. What did go wrong? What could it happen? As time passed by, Ronald was changing a lot. He would ask me to go out with him every day. You must think that that's alright, right? Yes. But we saw each other all the time, so I couldn't have time to see my family or even my friends. At first, I liked the fact that we would meet up every day, but then I realized that he wanted to have me all to himself. He wanted my life to be all about him. He would start telling me what to wear and where to go. There were times when I would go out with my sister, and I would see him in the same place where I was going. He was following me and not letting me go alone anywhere. At this point, I thought that he didn't even trust me. If you don't trust someone in a relationship, then that means that there is no love, right? I was too young to give everything to him, to change for him. I remember once I broke up with him because I had had enough. He kept saying that he would change, but he never did. I realized that he doesn't look at me as his girlfriend anymore. He looked at me as someone I must obey, like a slave. There wasn't love anymore, so I left. I remember how angry he was when I told him that I wanted to leave him. But I didn't care. I wanted my freedom. It has been months, and I am loving my life. I feel like no one is watching every step of what I do anymore. I feel free. Plus, something new has happened in my life. Let me start from the beginning. One day I was walking my dog at the park in our city. It was a beautiful day, very sunny. It was just me, and I had my headphones on. My dog, Buna, is usually timid. She is shy and always listens to what I say. She is a good girl, until that day. As I was walking her, she ran away so fast, and I almost fell to the ground. I started chasing her. Then I saw her next to another dog, another golden retriever, a male. They were kissing and playing around. It looked like they were falling in love. Then, all of a sudden, someone says, "Is that your dog?" I looked up and saw a tall, blonde guy with ocean eyes. I said yes, and he told me that the other dog that Buna was playing with was his. We were trying to get them separated, but we couldn't. They kept running away together. I felt happy and sad at the same time. I was sad because I was so caught up in my life that I forgot that even animals feel lonely. Even animals need love and someone to fall asleep with. We decided not to separate them and let them play a little bit. He went and bought me a coffee, and we sat in the park, watching our dogs play. His name was Trim, which in English it means brave. What a beautiful name. Trim was a little bit shy, but I could tell that he was very respectful. He was 2 years older than me. He lived in the same neighborhood as me, but I had never seen him before. We stayed there for an hour, and we talked like we had known each other for years. He said that he walks his dog every day, so we decided to meet the next day and walk them together. As I walked home, I didn't have an internet connection, but I noticed someone had texted me when I went in. It was my ex, Ron. He had written a long text saying that he saw me with another guy, and he wanted to know who he was. How did he see me? Was he following me still? I didn't want to text him at all, but he kept calling me and saying that we should meet. I didn't want to meet with him because I no longer owe him any explanations. I ate dinner and decided to watch a movie. It was just my sister and me at home. My parents weren't there. Suddenly, someone starts knocking on the door and calling my name. It was Roan. I opened the door. He went in without us saying and went straight to my room. He looked like he was crying, but he acted like a psychopath, saying that I shouldn't be moving on so fast. He kept saying that we weren't done yet. I told him that that was the first time that I saw that guy and that we were not dating. He refused to trust me and kept yelling. I got afraid and told him that if he didn't get out of my house, I would call the police. He had no other choice but to leave. I fell asleep that night, getting worried about what would happen next. The next day, I decided to meet with Trimi to walk our dogs, as we said the other day. At first, I thought that it would be better if I didn't meet up with him, but why would I? We met up at the same place where we first saw each other. The dogs were so happy to see each other. I was happy to see Trimi too. We are so much alike. We talked, and it was a well-spent day. I couldn't help but think if my ex was there somewhere watching. There were a lot of people, and I couldn't tell if he was there. I was afraid I would run up to him, and he would say something to Trimi. Days had gone by, and there were no calls, no nothing from my ex. But I could see that he was still stalking me on my social media. I didn't care as long as I was not seeing him. But, on the other hand, Trimi and I were texting non-stop. I know that it hadn't been long since I broke up with my ex, but the way he treated me got me thinking that I might actually like him. One day, after we were done walking our dogs, Trimi called me to go to his place. He lived near the park and said that he would make me a Turkish coffee. He said that everyone was crazy about his coffee. I was curious, so I went, even though I am not a big fan of coffee. We went there and stayed on his balcony. His sisters and his mother were there. We all had a great time. They all loved Bunith too. After some hours of staying at Trimi's, I decided to go home. He walked me out of his house and said that we should have a date tomorrow, but without our dogs. Our dogs were the reason why we were going out in the first place. Was that an excuse? Does he like me more than friends? I didn't know, but I wanted to find out, so I said yes. Tomorrow had come, and I was getting ready for the date. Buna was barking all the time, begging to take her with me. But that day, I couldn't. It was time that Trimi and I got to know each other even better. I got ready even though we hadn't been texting that day at all. But we had already chosen the place and the time. We decided on going to a restaurant near us. We would meet there. I went some minutes late, just so I couldn't be the first one to arrive there. I would sound so depressive. But when I got there, he still wasn't there. I didn't want to order without him, so I just waited, staying on my phone awkwardly. I didn't want to text him immediately. I waited for an hour, thinking that maybe something had happened. Nobody had ever stood me up on a date. I was feeling so embarrassed. I tried to call him, but he wouldn't answer. Then he texted me that he couldn't come. I went home feeling confused. He didn't even tell me the reason why he couldn't come. The next day, I thought about walking my dog simultaneously as I usually do. I was hoping to see Trimi and find out what had happened last night. But he wasn't at the park. He never misses a day without walking his dog. I thought that something bad had happened, and I couldn't stay without figuring it out. I decided to go to his house. His mother opened the door, and she seemed happy to see me. She insisted on going in and having a coffee, but I said no. Then, Trimi came outside of the house, not looking in a good mood. We decided to sit on the balcony. He wasn't talking at all. Then, I asked him about what had happened. He responded angrily, "You should go. It would be bad if your boyfriend saw that you are here." "What boyfriend?" I asked, confused. Then it hit me. It was Roan, the crazy ex, who apparently wouldn't leave me alone. I told him that I didn't have a boyfriend and that I would tell him if I had. He said that after I went home that day, Roan had come to his place and talked to him. He had said that he had told him that we were together. I couldn't believe my ears. Why would Roan do that? I explained to Trimi everything, and he believed me. I didn't know what to do with Roan. Should I talk to his parents? Should I call the police? I mean, he was stalking me and not leaving me alone. However, I thought that it would be better if I talked to him. I texted him and said that we should meet. I told him that we should meet somewhere in public, just in case he does something stupid. So, we did meet. He had bought me some flowers, and he seemed sad. I asked him why he said that to Trimi. His eyes were full of tears. He goes, "The idea of seeing you with someone else kills me." He said that he regrets everything he did to me and still loves me. But, if you love someone, you don't try to change them. The way they wear and the places they go. I explained to him that what he is feeling is not love. I think he understood that, and we agreed on staying friends. Will he stop leaving me alone? I don't know. Will Trimi and I get together? I don't know that either. All I know is that you should never try to change someone because that person will not change.
My name is Mona, and I am only 15-year-old. I was born and raised in the capital of Greece, Athens. I have lived only with my two beautiful parents all of my life. I am an only child, and I love it. I feel special and spoiled all the time. The city where I live, Athens, really inspires me. Even though I am only 15-year-old, I am a very romantic person. I romanticize everything. So, it is effortless living in my city, Athens. My city is very interestingly beautiful and romantic. It is blessed with a rich cultural and historical past. But, I am not here to talk about my city. Unlike other kids, I love going to school. I enjoy reading books in my free time. My favorite subject at my school is creative writing, and our teacher gave us an exciting thing to do at home. He said that we should write the most beautiful love story that had happened to us. The problem is that I don't have a love story. I've had my first kiss and some little dates, but that doesn't count as a love story. It's hard to have a genuine relationship at 15-year-old. I don't think my teacher doesn't understand today's relationships. I spend hours and hours thinking about what to write. I want a good grade, so should I lie? But, I can't lie, all of my friends would know. Then it hit me, since I don't have a love story yet, I might just write about the most beautiful love story that I've ever heard. Which was my parents' story. My parents are my inspiration. They have been married for 15 years. How did they meet? What's the secret of a long, healthy marriage? Let's find out. The story takes place years ago in Athens, when life was nothing like today. Life was easier and simpler. People really loved each other. There was no social media, no apps where you could swipe into someone's profile and go on a date with them. No, back in the old days, you had to fight to find a partner. At least that's what my parents have told me. There was a girl who only at 19-year-old had become a cop. And there was a boy who worked at a jewelry store that his father had owned. These two had lived a completely different life. The girl had come from a rigorous family, and the only reason she became a cop was that her mother was a cop too. The girl had always lived by rules and tried her best to be an excellent daughter and woman. But, on the other hand, the boy was rebellious. He was a bad boy, and the girls seemed to like that. All the girls loved him. These two lived so near each other but never met. Until one day, one lucky day, these two would run into each other, not knowing that their lives would change forever. The boy was working in his jewelry store when the girl came in. She was tall and had long blonde hair. She had a beautiful, shy smile. The girl in her police uniform got the boy all speechless. She was looking to get something for herself. It was her birthday. The boy made the first move, saying that she needed to pay since it was her birthday. But she insisted on paying, and she did. The boy wanted to know who she was. He saw her name on her uniform. Her name was Anna. But he didn't know where she lived. The boy wanted to know where this girl lived. The girl seemed like a very serious type of girl, nothing like the boy dealt with. She didn't give him a chance even to talk or ask anything. The girl didn't even look at his face. He asked around for the girl's name that he saw on her uniform. He found out that she lived so near his house. He was surprised how they didn't meet up until that day. But the boy got informed that Anna had very strict parents, and she rarely goes out. That would be a big problem for the boy. He would sometimes go by her house and spend hours in her neighborhood but never see her. The boy was used to all the girls being crazy about him, and he was used to getting any girl he wanted. A lot of girls come to his jewelry store just to see him. Anna was different. That's why the boy was curious about her. The boy couldn't stop talking about Anna to his friends. None of his friends knew her, but they always used to say that he shouldn't mess with her because her whole family worked in the police. They used to say that they were one crazy family. The boy decided to back up since he didn't find any solutions to meet her and talk to her. He talked to other girls during that time, but the curiosity never left. One day as he was walking home, he came across Anna. He was surprised. He went and talked to her and asked about how her birthday had gone. The first thing that she said was, "Who are you?" The boy was surprised, because everybody knew his name and who he was. The boy got humbled there. "My name is Sokol," he said surprisingly. As the boy was talking to her, Anna seemed very worried. She couldn't stop looking left and right. Sokol had asked her if there was anything wrong. "Anna has said that she is scared if her parents would see her with me. She said they don't like it if she hangs out with any boy." Sokol said, "Not even friends?" She said no, and started walking home, saying that he needed to leave her alone. Sokol felt bad for her. She was so young, and she was not enjoying life at all. Months went by, and Sokol had almost forgotten Anna's face. It was summertime, and everyone was out except her. One day as he was about to close the jewelry store, his father said, "Don't forget to put the alarm on." So, an idea came to his mind. He couldn't wait to get to work tomorrow and master his genius idea. Tomorrow came. The plan was that he should break the window of his jewelry store, and this way, the alarm would go on, and the police would come. And guess who works in the police? Anna. It was the only way that these two would meet. And that's what Sokol did. He closed the shop. He broke the window and started running home, acting like he had nothing to do with it. While he was staying home stressed, a phone call occurred. Sokol's father got the news and immediately went. Sokol went too. And there she was, Anna. She looked so beautiful and brave. Sokol was acting like he didn't know who did it and saying that he would beat up whoever did this. They stayed there for hours, trying to figure out who did it. This way they had the chance to talk with each other. Sokol could feel that Anna was starting to feel safe with him. But nothing more happened. They were back to their old ways, barely seeing each other anymore. After some weeks, Sokol had heard some bad news. People were talking and saying that Anna's family had found her a husband to marry. Sokol couldn't believe his ears. She was so young to get married, plus Sokol wanted to get to know her more. He felt like they could be together. So, Sokol tried to do his master plan once again. Maybe this time, it would work. It was night time, and he had finished his shift. This time he decided to take an expensive necklace, just so the story would be more believable. He took a stone and broke the window, and started running home as usual. He went home, and his father was already out. So he went with his father. After some minutes, the police arrived. And Anna was smiling, saying, "Again?" They still couldn't find who did that, but Sokol and Anna were talking non-stop with each other. Sokol tried to put his guard down and ask her straightforward about the rumors that she was going to get married. But she said that the rumors were fake. Sokol felt so happy, and he couldn't stop smiling. He went home feeling relieved. But Sokol didn't give up. He wanted to get to know her more and see her more. One day, he decided to go near her house and just see if she would come out or something. But Sokol saw something that he wished he didn't see. A guy was walking Anna home. Sokol hid somewhere so they wouldn't see him. That guy was a cop too, and they seemed to love each other's company. There were a million questions around his mind. Who was he? Anna said that her parents didn't let her hang out with a boy. Why was she? Is he the guy that people were rumoring about? At that moment, Sokol felt like he should give up and move on with his life. But he wanted to know why she lied to him about her not getting married. She was obviously with a guy, plus he was walking her home. Sokol felt like he had turned into a psychopath and a stalker. Because once again, he thought that his master plan should go on one more time. He did the usual thing. He broke the window and hoped for the better. His father got the news once again. But Sokol felt so bad when his father got the news. They were already spending a lot of money repairing the damages that Sokol was doing. Sokol decided that this would be the last time he would do that. The police came together with Anna. This time they were suspicious about this happening over and over again. They were finding it weird how every time this was happening when Sokol was working. But Sokol played it off like once again he didn't know what had happened. This time Sokol didn't have much time to ask Anna the questions he had. They barely talked. Sokol felt so down. He did all of this for nothing. Sokol's father had decided that he would be the one working all the time and that he would be working during the night too. Sokol felt hopeless. The following day, Sokol was sleeping when his mother had called him saying that someone was looking for him. He woke up and got dressed, whatever he could put on. It was Anna. He couldn't believe his eyes. She said that she wanted to talk with him. So that's what they did. The first thing she said was, "Why did you keep doing this?" She said that she knew that Sokol was the one breaking the windows. Sokol was speechless. She said that it was obvious that he did that, and she wanted to know the reason why. She said that she didn't want to tell Sokol's father because she believed that Sokol had a strong reason. Sokol knew that he had no other choice but just tell the truth. He said to her that she was the reason why he was doing all of this. She was surprised. Sokol said that he wanted to spend time and get to know her, but he couldn't. He told her that he liked her. He asked her if she liked him too and wanted to go out with him. What was her answer? What happened next? Well, they had me. So you might know how the rest of the story goes. They fell in love and spent the rest of their lives together. This is my favorite love story that I've ever heard because I admire how my father never gave up on my mother. Marriage and relationships can be hard, but you shouldn't give up on love. I envy my parents because nowadays nobody fights for love.
I am Madison, but everyone calls me Maddie. You can call me Maddie too. I wanted to share a piece of my life with you. At 16-year-old, life can be so dull and exciting at the same time. The most exciting part of my life is that I live in London. I love everything about London. Everyone thinks that people from London drink only tea, but that's not true. I love coffee. I have always loved coffee. My mom thinks that coffee might be the reason why I can't fall asleep at night. But I can't help it. The coffee wakes my soul up. There is so much to see and do in London. You can never get bored of it. I don't know if you know, but London has the most extensive library in the whole world. I love reading. Maybe that's why I drink so much coffee. It helps me not fall asleep and read more and more. I am obsessed with reading. My favorite book of all time is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. Once, I have read a whole book in just 2 days. But, what can I do? I don't enjoy going on my social media anymore. Everything is so fake, and I am tired of it. Why would I enjoy watching someone posting their food? Okay, you ate a margarita pizza, now what? And, no, Jessica, you don't look like that in real life. We can see your Photoshop fails. I think I am an old soul, just like my beloved grandfather, which he had passed 3 years ago. He is the reason why I am so into reading books. My mother always says that my grandfather used to read me every night before bed when I was a baby. I wish I could turn back and hear my grandfather read to me just one more time. The love of my grandparents has always been an inspiration to me. But, what can I say about my parents? My parents have been divorced for 5 years now. It was a peaceful breakup. I remember their divorce and how much I suffered from it. It was very depressive. Plus, I was an only child. That made this whole situation even worse. I just couldn't deal with the fact that my parents weren't together anymore. But I don't care now. They both have their own lives now. I live with my mother, even though I love Dad so much. He is the most kind and has the most generous soul. But, sometimes life doesn't work how you want. I remember at first I felt so guilty that I chose to live with my mother. I used to cry for my dad and how lonely he was. But now he was a girlfriend, and his girlfriend is pregnant. I am happy for him. I really am. I go to my dad's place every week. I love his girlfriend, and she is very kind to me. She says that I will be the one who is going to name their baby. Even my mother is happy for Dad, even though sometimes I think she gets a little jealous because his girlfriend is so much younger than Mom. However, recently something had caught my attention. My mother had been happier than ever. She had been going out a lot. She had been shopping and wearing new clothes. You should have smelled her perfume, and it's very sexual. I think she might be seeing someone. But I don't want to be the one asking her. I want her to be the only one telling me the news if there is any. I remember one day, I didn't go to school because I was sick. My mother didn't know because she was working during that time. The bell rang, and I decided to see who it was. There was no one. But, there was a big bouquet with red flowers and a note. Well, this clearly wasn't for me. I am single, unfortunately. I put the flowers in. I didn't want to read the note first, but the curiosity was killing me. The note said, "See you tonight, get ready by 8. So, yes, my mother was for real seeing someone. I put her flowers in her bed and decided to play it off like I didn't see anything. She came home and saw the flowers. She seemed very shy and embarrassed. But I wanted to make her feel good. I said to her that that was okay and that I wanted her to find her true love. Love has no age and no time. Then, she told me about everything. There was a man called Mitchell, and they had been dating for 1 year. Apparently, Mitchell's wife had died for 3 years now from cancer. They have one child, a son. It must be sad to lose your mother and know that you might not see it ever again. For a minute, I was glad my parents were divorced. At least, I could see and be with them. My mother got ready that night and went out. I was happy for her. She deserves someone to bring her flowers and love her in the best possible way. After some months, my mother told me some very good news. My mother and Mitchell had decided that it was time for us to meet as a whole family. I was excited. We got ready and decided to meet at a restaurant. And there it was, Mitchell and his son. Why didn't my mother tell me that Mitchell's son is the same age as me? I thought he was going to be younger or something. We sat and then started talking about random stuff. Mitchell was so kind and funny. I could tell that he was a good man. But on the other hand, Mitchell's son was so mysterious. Apparently, his name is Duor. He was 2 years older than me. He didn't talk much. He just kept staring. But generally, this date went very well. Days went by, and nothing exciting was happening. The school was almost over for this season. Summer was there. I was excited about summer. Life becomes better. Every summer, my mother and I always have some type of vacation. We go somewhere far, somewhere beaky, and spend some days there. My mother works, so she needs some time off. That's what we did that summer too. But that time, something was different. It wasn't just my mother and me anymore. My mother thought that it would be good if we called Mitchell and his son. I agreed, why not? So that's what we did. We got in the car. A long road was ahead of us. Duor and I were sitting in the back seat, and this way, we had more chances to get to know each other better. Just like Mitchell, Duor was funny too. But I'd always catch him staring at me in a way that I can't describe. He had a perfect style and had a lot of cool rings on his fingers. I couldn't help but look at them. He had beautiful hands. After some hours of driving, I had nothing to do. It was getting boring. I decided to read my books. I got so lost in my book and in what was happening there. Then all of a sudden, I felt that something had touched my shoulder. It was Dior. He had fallen asleep on my shoulder. I didn't want to wake and ruin his sleep. I felt bad. Plus, he smelled so good. The road trip was long, but we finally had made it to our destination, the beach. I spent the whole day napping, but it was beach day all day the next day. I put on my bikini, got myself an iced coffee, and got myself a good book. That's how I spend my beaky days. I love to tan while I am reading. But Dior had something else on his mind. He thought that it would be a great idea if we all took a boat. But my mother hates boats. She gets seasick. Then, he pushed on taking me with him. It was just Dior and me. As we were getting on the boat, I wanted to take my book with me. He said, "Come on, be fun for once." For once. How can he know how fun I am? The first minutes of the boat ride, I was moody about what he had said. But he kept talking and making funny jokes that were hard to stay mad at. Suddenly, he asked me to put sunscreen lotion on his back. Then, he put sunscreen on me, without me asking. I was shy and didn't know what to say. We got back, and I got back to my reading. The next day came. It was my mother's and Mitchell's second anniversary of their relationship. They decided that it would be great if we all went to a fancy dinner. But Dior said that they should go without us. Maybe he was right. They needed some alone time. That's what they did. I decided to stay in for the night. Suddenly, I get a text from Dior, saying that I should meet him in his hotel room. It was across my room. I decided to go since I had nothing to do. He said that we should go to a club near our hotel. We got dressed and decided to go. Even though we were not 21-year-old, they let us in. The vibes were so good, and we danced a lot. We had some drinks. A lot, I must say. We were dancing, and he would grab me by my waist. I was saying to myself, is it the alcohol, or do I really like this guy? Everything happened so fast. We kissed. I didn't mean to kiss him. He was the first to take me to move. I could have stopped him, but I didn't. What was happening with me? We both looked at each other surprisingly. We didn't say a word about what happened. We got to our hotel and went into our separate rooms. The next day had come, and we pretended as nothing had happened. I know that the kiss was a bad thing to do. He is my stepbrother. But, last night I couldn't sleep without thinking of it. He is exactly my type. I'd date him if he weren't my stepbrother. Plus, he was older than me. I liked that fact. I decided to play it off like I don't remember what had happened yesterday. I was going by the beach, and there he was. He was waiting for me. We met and acted like we didn't kiss. We decided to take another boat ride together, hoping that we would discuss what happened yesterday. As long as we left the shore and that nothing could be seen, he came at me. And he kissed me. I still didn't hesitate and didn't say no. I felt guilty, and I didn't want this to happen. I felt like we were betraying our parents. I told him those exact words. He agreed, but he said that he was starting to have a feeling for me. I was starting to feel in a certain way too, but I didn't say anything. There was no need for us to say anything because this thing shouldn't have happened at all. We decided that the moment we were going to be on the shore from the boat ride, we would forget that we ever kissed. And that's what we did. We decided that this would be our little secret. The road trip home wasn't awkward at all. I felt happy that we still could talk and joke around, even after what had happened. For a second, I thought that I could be in love with my stepbrother. But that would be so selfish of me. We kissed because we felt vulnerable during that time. There was nothing else there. Maybe it could be. Who knows? But it is not our time to love. Our parents deserve love more than we do. We are still young, and we know that other souls out there are waiting to fall in love with us. I am just happy to share this here since no one knows about this. I am Rona, and I will tell you the story of my life, the story of what happened a couple of years ago. Where can I start? I was living with my family in a so-called third world country. It was me, my parents, and my little brother. Life was not easy. My mother had no job, and my father was taking less money than we needed to survive. Even though I was only 16-year-old during that time, I wanted to work. I wanted to work for myself and for what I needed. But, where I lived, there weren't many jobs to do for women. That's why my mother had never worked, and I couldn't find a job. All I used to do was go to school and come back. How was the school, you might ask? The school was great, but the people there not so much. I had realized that when you don't have as much money as your friends, you can never feel comfortable around them. They didn't feel comfortable around me either, so that's why I had distanced myself. The house where we lived was so far from my school. We never had a car, and we always used to walk to school. During summer, it was easy, but in the winter, we would freeze to death. During winter, there were hungry dogs that always followed us to school. It was dangerous. Sometimes we would take some food with ourselves so that they wouldn't bite us. But, thank God I had my little brother. Even though I was the big sibling, I felt safe with him. We used to walk to school together. We would discuss our friends, how much money they had, and how lucky they were. My brother and I were the only ones walking, and it was so embarrassing. All of my friends' family had cars. Our friends had new phones. They used to wear all the clothes that were trending during that time. One of the reasons nobody wanted to date me was that my clothes were not trendy. And nobody wanted to date a poor girl. There were times when my brother and I would get back from school, and I couldn't help but complain. The school had gotten me so tired mentally and physically. It was just too much. But, still, I tried to hide it because I knew that it was a hard time for my parents too. They were trying their best. My father was working non-stop, and still, the money was never enough. I knew that he was taking loans from our friends and family. But, he never admitted. But, we knew. People had started to come to our house and ask for their money back. My father was sick and tired of working and then having nothing. I remember it was winter one day, and my brother and I came back from school. When we got home, there were suitcases around our house. I remember asking about what happened. Then, they had told us. They had told us that they had decided to take a dangerous road straight to first world countries. I remember being so exciting and scared at the same time. We were finally going to a better place, to France. If we made it to France, our lives would get better, and my father could pay back the people he took the loan to. We took our clothes, all of our stuff, and some food. There was a big, old truck outside our house. My father had rented it for us. We got in and took a last look at our house and our village. There was a long road ahead of us, and we were just hoping for the better. The road trip was silent, and I knew that a million thoughts were running through my parents' minds. The road trip to the first world country would take us 3 days. We didn't know it, but they would be the most challenging 3 days of our lives. I remember the first day and how good it went. It made us think that this would be easy and that we would arrive there in a minute. We drove and drove, and then we stopped at a hill so we could sleep and take some rest so we could be ready for the next day. We were sleeping in the truck, and there was enough place for all of us. I remember how I couldn't sleep that day, thinking about how our lives would change forever. I was already thinking about the clothes that I was going to buy and the new iPhone that had just launched. That's how I slept that day. We woke up the following day and noticed that the snow had covered the whole place. It was cold. We ate some food and then hit the road without wasting our time. I remember the streets were so icy. We were driving so slow. We were stopped almost at every border by the military forces. They would ask us questions, and they would keep us for hours. Nobody liked refugees. But, we were going there with good intentions, for a good start and a good life. Being stopped at every border took us a lot of time. The next day arrived, and we were ready to have some good sleep. Apparently, that night it had been snowing all night. When we woke up, we noticed that the truck wasn't starting. My father tried to start it, but nothing. Our truck's engines had been frozen because of the weather. I remember how stressed my parents were. They didn't know what to do. It had been hours, and the truck was still not starting. We were just wasting time. We decided to ask for help and see if anybody could fix our truck. But, we had parked our truck somewhere in the mountains so that we could sleep, and there weren't any houses near. My father decided to walk some miles and ask for help as we were staying in the truck waiting. But, there was nothing near us, and it was so cold, my father couldn't walk anymore. We stayed some hours in the truck to see if any car drove near us, but nobody showed up. There was only a little road left ahead of us, and we decided to put our fate into our legs. So, we decided to walk. It was the middle of winter, and it was so cold. We put on all the clothes we had, and we took our food. Walking was so hard, and we didn't even know where we would be spending the night. At that point, we didn't know if we would make it alive. We couldn't walk on the streets, and we had to walk into the depths of the mountains so that the police wouldn't ask us questions. The most challenging part of this story was when we had to cross a river to get away from the police. I will never forget the feeling. The feeling of my clothes getting wet by the river's cold water. My body was shaking, and I couldn't feel my legs. But crossing the river was the only way we could get away from the police and arrive at our destination. France. Our clothes were soaking wet, but we didn't care at that point. We were almost there. Our last most challenging part was spending the night outside. Our clothes were still a little bit wet. We had found an abandoned cabin and slept there on the balcony. The door was locked, but we didn't care. At least we weren't sleeping on snow. I remember getting up every hour in the middle of the night because I was scared if there would be any wild animals near us. I remember seeing my father guarding us. He hadn't slept at all. His nose was all red, and he looked so worried. That night I slept crying, hoping for the best of what was coming next. That night's sleep wasn't the best sleep, but we knew that we would be in France the next day. So, that's what happened. The next day had come, and there wasn't much food left for everyone. There were only 2 sandwiches left, so we shared them and hit the road. Finally, we arrived in France. We weren't looking our best, but we made it. We were tired, and we just needed someone's help. But, I remember the first time that I saw the city of France. I was speechless. It was huge, nothing like my village. It looked like how we imagined and how we dreamed. The land of opportunities. It was snowing there too. There weren't many people around. I remember a policeman approached us. I remember my father's voice shaking, saying to the policeman that we were refugees and needed help. My father was begging for help. I will never forget that policeman's face and how much he had helped us. They took us to a place to stay. It wasn't a 5-star hotel, but we didn't care. We didn't need that. They gave us food and warm clothes. You should have seen my father's face and how happy he was. We all were happy. Our eyes were full of happy tears. I took a warm bath, and I fell asleep by the window while looking at the city. It has been months since we got here, in France. Our life has changed for the better. My father and my mother found a job. My father works as a taxi driver, and my mother works as a waiter. But, they are getting paid very well. At least, my parents won't worry about the essential things to buy for us. My brother and I have started school. Thank God that our school is near the apartment where we live. It's only a 5-minute walk. The people at my new school are so kind, and I have made some good friends here. They respect us even though we are not from France. Everyone at my school works after school, so I decided to work too. Why not? I could have my own money, and I could buy whatever I wanted. Plus, I always wanted to work. We have a neighbor that has a 1-year baby, and she asked me if I could work as a nanny and take care of her child. I accepted. I love children, and it's a fun job that gets paid very well. However, not everything is promised here. We are still just refugees. We are still waiting for the government to give us the final decision. We still don't know if we can stay here forever or go back to our village. It would be a nightmare if we had to get back. I don't miss my village because there's nothing to do there. Plus, we have adopted here very fast. It would be so sad if I had to leave my new school friends here, my job, and this city. Everything is more accessible here. I just wanted to share my story and ask you to pray for me. To pray for my family and all the refugees out there. I don't wish for anyone to go through what we went through. Every refugee story is different, but I know that we all have the courage not only to survive but to preserve and rebuild our shattered lives. My name is Beatrix, and I just wanted to tell a story about what happened 2 years ago in my life. A lot has happened in 2 years. 2 years ago, I was only 16-year-old. Life was not easy. I grew up in a very toxic household. I grew up with my parents fighting all the time. I don't know if there was a day when my parents didn't fight about something. But, when it came to me, they were completely different people. My parents are the sweetest parents anyone could ever ask for. They care about me. They love me. I am their only child. I was spoiled and loved like no other. But, sometimes, love is not just enough. Marriage is not just about love. Marriage is about commitment, and being responsible for what you do and say. Communication is key, but my parents didn't have that. I was only 16-year-old, but I was old enough to notice that they didn't know how to communicate with each other. My parents always fought, but I knew that it wasn't that serious until one day. I remember it like it was yesterday. I got woken up from the sound of my mother screaming to my father. My father came home late the other night, and my mother had found out that he cheated. My mother decided to file for divorce, even though my dad begged her to stay. I remember I felt so bad for my mother. No woman deserves to get cheated on. They decided not to live together anymore. One day they had asked me a very important question. They asked me if I'd choose to stay with my mother or with my father. I loved them equally. I mean, they are my parents. But, the one that got cheated on was my mother. I couldn't be the one to let her down too. Plus, my mother had always been like a father too. She has always been there for me. So, that's what I did. I chose my mother. We left home. At that time, my mother didn't have a job. We had no job and nowhere to live. The only person that we could call to help us was my grandmother. My grandmother lived alone, so we had the opportunity to live there for some months until we figured some things out. Living at my grandma's house was fun. My mother was searching for a job. So, she was always out doing job interviews. Most of the time, I was home only with my grandmother. I loved her cooking. She cooked with love. She had told me some of her secret recipes. We would talk for hours. She would tell me about her life when she was a teenager and how much she missed my grandpa. I felt safe at my grandmother's house. The vibes were different. But, during that time, my mother was in a terrible place. My father had always been wealthy. When we went to the court, he won everything. His lawyers helped him take all of his wealth for himself, and not give anything to my mother or me. My father was almost making me go with him. But, I was old enough to choose. To this day, I still don't regret going with my mother. My father had shown his true colors. If he really loved us, he would help us and give us some money. At least for a good start. My mother struggled to find a job, and I remember feeling so bad. She was trying so hard. I remember wanting to quit school to work something and help her. But she didn't let me. She always said that I should work hard and finish school to be independent. Months went by, and my mother still hadn't gotten a job. At that time, my mother had turned into a whole different person. She was angry at life, at everything. Even at 16-year-old, I understood that she felt like everyone had let her down. At some point, she was ready to give up. She stopped going to job interviews. I remember how she didn't even want to get a bath. She was deep in depression, and she always used to fight with my grandmother. My mother used to put the anger that she had on my grandmother. One day, they got into a huge pointless argument, and my mother had enough. My grandmother was crying, saying that we didn't need to go. But, my mother thought that this would be for the better. This way, my mother would try harder and not give up so easily. My grandmother gave us our grandfather's old car. She couldn't drive anymore, so she thought we would put it to good use. She gave us her car, food, clothes and some money. It was winter, and we had no idea where to go. I remember us driving with no destination. It was snowing so much. It was almost Christmas time. It should have been the most wonderful time of the year. But, not this time. We drove and drove. We didn't know where to go, and we hadn't much money with us. It was the middle of the night, and we got tired. We found a mountain not so far from the city, and we decided to park the car there and stay the night. We shouldn't even have parked there. We would have been arrested. But, we had no other choice. I remember I was so scared to sleep in the car. We were scared if someone would knock in our windows and try to kidnap us or something. I hadn't had much sleep on the first night, but then I got used. But, the car was a blessing. Without it, we would be sleeping on the streets in the cold. We lived in our car for almost 2 weeks. It was the most challenging time of our lives. At that time, I wasn't going to school anymore. So, we kind of just stayed and hoped that my mother could find a job. I missed my bed, and I missed having a hot shower. It had been days that I hadn't had a proper meal. We used to eat cheap fast food with the bit of money that our grandmother gave us. The nights were so cold, and we used to sleep hugging each other. I remember asking my mother to go back to our grandmother's house. But my mother just wanted to make it alone. Even though we lived in the car, she never lost a job interview. I remember how she used to play it off at times like everything was all right, and how she used to sing and dance, to not make me feel worried. But, I knew that deep inside, she was sad and anxious until one day, one perfect day, I was staying in the car, and I saw my mother by the window. She told me some good news. She said that she had got a job at a restaurant, and she will start working from tomorrow. My mother told the restaurant owner about our life, our situation, and he said that we could sleep there. At his restaurant. Our life was about to be changed forever, and we just didn't know it yet. We took our car and drove there. The restaurant was so beautiful and comfy. We met with the boss. My mother's boss was so generous and kind, and he was named Mitchell. He had asked me how school was going, but I told him that I couldn't afford school right now. I told him that I wanted to work and help my mother. He accepted that, and he had made me an assistant. I worked as my mother's assistant. Life was beautiful during that time. I could finally have some good sleep and eat some warm, good meal. I woke up early, worked, and had met some beautiful people. It felt good living and having a routine. It had been 2 years since my mother and I worked at the restaurant. I could tell that my mother was happy. I was happy too. During our time working at Mitchell's restaurant, something beautiful had happened. Love had happened. My mother fell in love with her boss, Mitchell. Who wouldn't love Mitchell? He was so kind and gentle, and he had helped us a lot. He became like my father in such a short time. He had never been married before because he had always been busy with his restaurant. But he loved my mother more than anyone before. He loved kids, and he treated me like I was his daughter. However, my mother's goal now is to be independent. She knew what she went through when she got divorced. She doesn't want to make that mistake again. For those 2 years that we had been working, my mother and I saved money. Since my mother always wanted to have something on her own, we decided to open a coffee shop. We thought it would be a great idea since I wasn't going to school during that time. I wanted to take a break and just kind of put our life together. Plus, my mother needed my help. We were excited about this, and we had decided to tell Mitchell. Even though we wouldn't be working at his restaurant, we loved the idea. He said that that's okay and that we should follow our dreams. And that's what we did. We followed our dreams. New York has the most beautiful places and views, so it was easy for us to find a place to open our coffee shop. Mitchell had helped us a lot. He had helped us with painting the walls of our store. We decided to give the store a vintage look, and it turned out so good. The coffee shop was so small, but it was so cute. The coffee shop had large windows, and you could see everything that was happening outside. It's a place where you could bring your favorite book and just read for hours while drinking your coffee. Our coffee shop is open 24/7. I work there as a waiter, and I love it. At first, it was just my mother and me, but now we have 4 employees. All of our 4 employees are females. Our employees are women that needed help, just like we did. It feels good helping people. I know how it feels to need help and not get any. Every day is a good day at our coffee shop. Every day we meet new beautiful people, and I have made a lot of friends. After some time, my mother and Mitchell decided not to waste time and have a wedding. It was one of the most beautiful weddings that I have ever seen. It felt good seeing my mother in a white dress and happy. Maybe it is time for me to have a brother or a sister. Who knows? My mother and I often visit the grandmother. They are on good terms now. We had given her car back, even though she insisted on not to. But we wanted to leave everything that reminded us of bad times. My grandmother comes to our coffee shop almost every day. She says that my coffee is her favorite coffee to drink. I am going to school now, after that big break. Every day after school, I come here to our coffee shop, and I help my mother. Are you curious about what happened with my father? Well, I don't know what happened with him. We hadn't heard from him since my mother filed the divorce. He hadn't even called to see if we were okay. But that doesn't matter. We are okay now. Better than never. I just wanted to share my story and say that life works in very unpredictable ways, and that you should never give up. Life has its ups and downs, and that's the beauty of it. We should embrace the good and the bad times.